Imagine stepping into a vast sun-dappled eucalyptus forest at the edge of twilight. The air is thick, cool, and immediately calming, saturated with the medicinal, mind-clearing scent of crushed blue gum leaves. Golden hour light filters through the silvery green canopy in heavy luminous beams, catching tiny motes of dust that dance lazily in the still warm air. High above the forest floor, nestled securely in the protective V-shaped crook of an ancient pale-barked tree, a small grey silhouette shifts against a fading apricot sky. The world is physically slowing down around you. The relentless, exhausting pace of the day dissolves completely into the soft rustling of leaves and the distant, soothing chorus of the Australian bush settling into the deep blue of night. You can feel the heavy, solid presence of the earth beneath you, and the towering, quiet strength of the trees reaching upward. As we drift higher into this tranquil canopy, let your own breathing match the slow, rhythmic rising and falling of the chest of the creature sleeping softly above. You're entering a sacred space of quiet observation and deep restorative rest. You do not need to try to remember the things you're about to hear. Your subconscious mind is a vast, limitless library. It will absorb these 101 truths while you rest. Just let go. Surrender your conscious grip on the world. Allow the gentle, carrying current of these words and the peaceful, ancient energy of the forest to wash over you, pulling you deeper and deeper into relaxation. In the high, swaying branches, this creature is an absolute master of profound tranquility, spending up to 22 hours of every single day in deep, motionless slumber. This incredible stillness is not laziness, but a beautiful, necessary conservation of energy. It is an evolutionary masterpiece of pacing oneself in a demanding world. Imagine sleeping so profoundly, so deeply enveloped in the cradle of the rough wooden branches that the passing of time loses all meaning. Their thick woolly fur acts as a perfect insulating blanket against the cool night air, allowing their heart rate to slow dramatically. They become one with the tree, a breathing extension of the forest itself, perfectly content to simply exist in a state of perpetual resting peace. This immense, overwhelming need for rest is born directly from the very leaves that surround them in the canopy. The eucalyptus they consume with such slow deliberation is remarkably tough, highly fibrous, and packed heavily with complex toxins that would severely harm almost any other creature on Earth. Yet, the koala's body is a quiet, miraculous, and highly specialized alchemy lab. Slowly, patiently, their unique digestive system breaks down these harsh, toxic oils, carefully filtering them away into nothingness, miraculously transforming what is dangerous to others into pure, life-sustaining nourishment. It is a slow, methodical process that requires immense internal focus, drawing all their energy inward to heal, digest, and sustain. As they slowly chew the silvery blue, fragrant leaves, they are not just feeding, but deeply drinking. In the ancient, ancestral languages of the First Nations people, the word from which we derive koala is widely thought to mean no water. It is a creature that almost never needs to descend to the perilous forest floor to find a stream or a puddle. Instead, they draw almost all the precious hydration they require directly from the moisture-locked leaves. In the quiet, misty hours of the early morning, they absorb the dew that coats their food, taking in the very essence of the rain that the great tree has patiently drawn up from the deep, hidden aquifers of the earth beneath them. As they reach out their arms to gather those life-giving, water-filled leaves, their hands reveal a startling, incredibly intimate secret. If you were to look very closely at the soft, leathery pads of their fingers, tracing the microscopic ridges, loops, and whorls etched into their skin, you would find fingerprints so uniquely intricate that they are almost entirely indistinguishable from our own human fingerprints. Even under the powerful lens of a microscope, police and forensic scientists have found it profoundly difficult to tell a koala's touch apart from a human's. It is a quiet, beautiful echo of shared biology, a delicate touch of familiarity reaching across the vast, incomprehensible chasm of evolutionary time. Those grasping hands are true marvels of arboreal engineering, designed perfectly for a life suspended in the air. On their front paws, they possess not just one, but two opposing thumbs. As you feel the comforting weight of your own hands resting heavily and loosely beside you, imagine the incredibly secure, unyielding grip of two thumbs gently but firmly locking around a thick wooden branch. This dual-thumbed embrace provides perfect, unwavering stability. Even as the wind picks up and the entire world sways and rocks gently in the evening breeze, they remain securely anchored, entirely safe, held fast by a grip designed never to let go while they sleep. This secure, unyielding grip on the branches is essential, particularly when a mother is carrying her most precious fragile cargo. Unlike a kangaroo bounding across the plains, whose pouch opens upwards toward the sky, the mother koala's pouch opens entirely differently. It faces downwards towards the earth. This might seem precarious, but a strong muscular ring acts as a safe, unyielding drawstring at the opening. This ensures that even as she climbs vertically up the tallest, most violently swaying gum trees, her tiny hairless joey remains perfectly safe, tightly cradled in a warm, dark, downward-facing sanctuary, feeling the gentle, rhythmic sway of its mother's movements. Deep within that warm, absolute darkness of the pouch, the journey of digestion begins long before the tiny joey ever tastes its first eucalyptus leaf. The mother provides her young with a specialized, deeply vital substance, a delicate, life-giving offering of essential gut flora. This specialized gift, gently consumed by the joey, inoculates its pristine stomach, carefully passing down the exact microscopic blueprints and bacteria needed to eventually digest the tough, toxic eucalyptus on its own. It is a quiet, generational inheritance of survival, the microscopic secrets of the forest passed directly from mother to child in the safety of the dark. They do not need a complex, restless, or overthinking mind to thrive in these serene treetop havens. In fact, compared to their body size, a koala's brain is surprisingly small. It rests inside a skull largely filled with a clear, cushioning cerebrospinal fluid, acting as a brilliant built-in shock absorber in case they ever happen to slip from their high perches. Furthermore, the surface of their brain is almost completely smooth, utterly lacking the complex folds, deep wrinkles, and intricate valleys found in the brains of more anxious, high-strung creatures. It is a brain perfectly and beautifully evolved for a life of profound simplicity, freed from the burden of overanalysis, needing only to deeply know the texture of the branch, the smell of the leaf, and the quiet, resetting rhythm of endless sleep. Yet, even in the deep velvet stillness of the midnight forest, this creature of ultimate peace can produce a sound that profoundly reverberates through the dense timber. Using a highly specialized extra pair of vocal folds located uniquely outside of their larynx, a male koala can release a deep, incredibly resonant bellow. It is a low, rhythmic, almost mechanical grunting sound, a rumbling, vibrating bass note that you can feel in your chest. This deep frequency travels effortlessly for miles through the cool, damp night air, easily bypassing the thick foliage, naturally announcing his strong presence to the listening forest, without him ever needing to expend the energy to move a single muscle. And just as those deep, vibrating voices carry invisibly through the cool air, so does their highly distinct signature scent. The males bear a bare, darkly pigmented patch right on the centre of their chests. This is a specialised gland that exudes a complex, musky, almost sweet perfume. By slowly, deliberately leaning forward and rubbing this chest patch against the rough, textured bark of their favourite trees, they essentially paint the forest with their physical presence. They leave behind invisible, lingering aromatic messages mixed with the sticky eucalyptus sap, telling a rich, entirely silent story to the rest of the canopy about exactly who has peacefully passed through these ancient starlit branches. The lingering aroma of that ancient sweet perfume settles deeply into the heavy, deeply grooved bark, a textured, peeling bark that cradles their physical form so perfectly. As the light in the forest shifts from the bright, blinding gold of the afternoon into the softer, bruised purples of dusk, shadows begin to pool heavily in the deep V-shaped forks of the great eucalyptus trees. Deep within the architecture of the resting koala's body, there is a brilliant hidden adaptation designed for absolute, unwavering comfort in these jagged wooden heights. Where a human spine ends, the koala possesses a highly specialized, dense cartilaginous pad, a thick, resilient and beautifully designed cushion built entirely for the endless motionless hours of sitting. The harsh, splitting angles of the giant branches, which would feel unbearably sharp and unyielding to anyone else, become soft, perfectly customized armchairs. As they shift their weight, this cartilaginous plate effortlessly absorbs the pressure, moulding to the contours of the wood. The rough, flaking textures of the tree pressing against them are not a nuisance, but a profound, grounding sensation, a firm, reassuring pressure that whispers softly of total security, perfect balance, and an absolute belonging to the geometry of the forest. The feeling of that deep internal grounding mirrors the slow, unseen and miraculous alchemy happening quietly within their very core. To process the tough silver-green leaves they have swallowed, their digestive tract harbours a magnificent hidden chamber, a hugely enlarged hindgut known as the cecum. In the quiet darkness of the koala's body, this chamber is vastly elongated, stretching out to astonishing serpentine proportions, becoming a slow-moving, warm, dark river of digestion. Within this hidden, winding labyrinth, millions upon millions of microscopic symbiotic bacteria live their entire unseen lives, labouring endlessly, breaking down the tough, heavily armoured, fibrous cell walls of the toxic foliage. It is a microscopic ecosystem of profound patience and incredible focus, meticulously extracting every solitary drop of life-giving energy from a food source that the rest of the vibrant, hungry forest utterly ignores. The slow, deliberate, rhythmic pulse of this hidden chamber dictates the very passage of time for the creature sleeping above. The journey of a single fragrant leaf through this winding internal maze is not measured in fleeting minutes, or even in passing hours, but in a sprawling expanse of days. A single meal can remain within their system, slowly tumbling through the warm, dark pathways for up to 100 unbroken hours. Think of the sun rising, cresting the canopy in a blaze of white light, and sinking into a wash of crimson, again and again and again, all while a single leaf is patiently broken down. This extraordinary prolonged retention is the absolute pinnacle of biological energy conservation. Their internal metabolic furnace burns with the lowest, coolest flame imaginable, an ember barely glowing in the dark, ensuring that absolutely nothing is wasted and nothing is ever rushed. The world outside may spin in a frantic, exhausting blur of noise and motion, but the koala exists in a suspended, beautifully decelerated dimension of slow, liquid time, and as this knowledge of slow, patient, unhurried time settles deeply within your own mind, you can feel your own internal rhythms beginning to effortlessly match it. Your breathing naturally slows, gently drawing out each long inhalation and letting each deep exhalation melt away any lingering tension in your muscles. The frantic, demanding pace of the day you left behind is 100 hours away. You're safe. You're slowing down, sinking deeper into the quiet geometry of rest. The cool, steady rhythm of this decelerated heartbeat is protected by an exterior just as miraculously designed as the silent working interior. When the heavy slate-grey clouds of the Australian winter roll slowly across the canopy, completely blocking out the sun and bringing sudden, freezing, torrential downpours of relentless rain. The koala does not panic. They do not need to desperately seek shelter in the hollows. They are their own shelter. Their thick, incredibly dense woolly coat is a masterpiece of natural engineering, packing thousands upon thousands of coarse, highly specialized, tightly woven hairs into every single square inch of their skin. As the heavy silver droplets of water fall from the bruising sky, they strike this pelt and simply bead up, rolling effortlessly off the surface like liquid glass moving across a heavily waxed leaf. Beneath this impenetrable, waterproof armour, their skin remains perfectly, miraculously dry, radiating a steady, comforting inner warmth against the freezing chill of the weeping forest. The hypnotic drumming sound of that rain, falling softly against the waterproof fur, is a solitary, peaceful music, a symphony enjoyed in profound, deeply relaxing isolation. For these are creatures that deeply and instinctively understand the quiet luxury of absolute personal space. In the vast, sprawling, three-dimensional architecture of the forest canopy, they are solitary, quiet wanderers, implicitly respecting the invisible, unspoken boundaries that gently separate their individual leafy domains. Their expansive home ranges may softly overlap at the very edges, much like the gently blurring wet borders of a watercolour painting fading into one another. But they rarely, if ever, seek the close company of their own kind. They find absolute, pure contentment in the quiet, thriving beautifully in the unbroken solitude of the high branches, where the only conversation is the wind rustling through the silver leaves, and the only companion is the steady, unmoving, ancient trunk of the tree itself. The visual texture of this solitary, peaceful contentment subtly changes its shape and form as the seasons gently turn, painting the vast forest in entirely different temperatures and qualities of light. When the fierce, golden, unforgiving heat of the deep summer sun beats down, baking the upper canopy in shimmering, distorted waves of intense warmth, the koala physically transforms to meet the heat. They sprawl their bodies out completely against the cooler, heavily shaded bark of the lower, thicker branches, letting their limbs dangle limply, entirely relaxed, exposing their lighter, much less insulated, pale underbellies to whatever faint cooling breeze might stir through the heavy air. They become almost liquid, melting deeply into the wood to gently release their body heat into the cooler surface of the tree. Yet, when the icy silver fingers of the winter night creep slowly through the deep valleys, turning the dew to frost, they pull themselves upward into a tight, perfect, unbroken sphere, a compact woolly ball of preserved internal warmth, tucking their sensitive, dark nose and hands deep within the thickest part of their own fur, locking the cold out entirely, turning inward to the heat of their own slow-beating heart. Recognizing this perfect, effortless adaptation to the changing, swirling world around them, your own physical body finds its ideal, absolute and comfortable temperature. The soft fabrics resting gently over you feel exactly right, perfectly holding the warmth where it is needed, and allowing the gentle coolness to soothe where it touches. You are perfectly, seamlessly calibrated to your environment. Everything in this moment is exactly as it should be. You are drifting further and further down into the quiet, welcoming dark. The profound safety of that tight, warm, woolly sphere echoes the profound, nurturing darkness where their life truly begins. A darkness that provides not just a physical shelter, but a perfectly tailored, constantly adapting sustenance. When a tiny, impossibly fragile, jelly bean-sized joey is nestled deep within the mother's pouch, the milk the mother's body provides is not a static, unchanging liquid. It is dynamic, highly intelligent, and profoundly, biologically responsive to the exact moment in time. In the earliest, most delicate days, the milk is thin, almost completely clear, and packed heavily with complex, easily digested carbohydrates to fuel the initial, desperate, rapid burst of early growth. But as the long, quiet months slowly pass, as the joey grows heavier, growing its own fine layer of fur in the dark, the mother's body subtly, miraculously shifts its internal chemistry. The milk slowly, steadily thickens, becoming rich and heavy with dense vital fats and complex proteins, perfectly, mathematically matching the exact changing nutritional needs of the growing life she carries. It is an intuitive, microscopic ballet of nourishment, guided silently by ancient, flawless biological wisdom. This incredible, highly tailored nourishment quietly builds the vital strength required for the inevitable day the pouch finally becomes too small, seamlessly opening an entirely new chapter in the canopy's dappled, shifting light. Emerging from the warm, absolute darkness of the sanctuary, the older, wide-eyed joey does not immediately venture out alone into the terrifying, swaying heights. Instead, it crawls slowly upward, finding a new, equally secure, elevated resting place, clinging tightly with tiny, sharp claws to its mother's broad, woolly grey back. For another 6 long, sunlit, heavily observed months, it rides silently upon her back as she slowly navigates the dizzying, vertical heights of the forest. It watches. It learns the rough, peeling texture of the bark, the sharp, medicinal scent of the ripest, most perfect leaves, the exact, terrifying but entirely natural sway of the branches in the wind, all while safely, completely anchored to the familiar, rising and falling warmth of the massive creature that gave it life. It is a slow, gentle, perfect apprenticeship in the high, green, sun-drenched world. The solid, reassuring, ancient weight of the mother, carefully carrying her young hints at a deep, forgotten, deeply buried history hidden far beneath the tangled roots of the towering trees they now effortlessly call home. Though they sleep suspended gracefully in the sky, framed by the blue of the heavens, they are entirely biologically unconnected to the heavy bears of the Northern Hemisphere, despite the common, endlessly repeated, mistaken name. Their truest, closest living evolutionary relative dwells not in the airy, swaying branches, but deep within the dense, dark earth below, the heavy, powerful, burrowing wombat. Millions upon millions of years ago, in the dim, humid, unremembered dawn of the ancient continent, the shared ancestors of the koala walked heavily and slowly upon the soft, shaded forest floor. They were creatures of the damp soil and the deep shadows. Only very slowly, over countless sprawling, unimaginable millennia, did they begin to look upward, gradually trading the dark, safe subterranean tunnels of the earth for the blinding, sunlit, swaying architecture of the eucalyptus canopy, learning to float above the world they once dug beneath. Echoing this slow, magnificent, evolutionary climb from the dark earth directly into the bright sky is the absolute, staggering perfection of the biological tools they use to hold on to their new world. The hands that grip the swaying, smooth branches are not just simple paws, but highly evolved, incredibly precise instruments of aerial survival. On their muscular forelimbs, they possess a miraculous, specialized configuration. 2 distinct digits deeply oppose the remaining 3, functioning exactly like a pair of powerful, independent, clamping thumbs. This creates a deeply locking, pincer-like grip of astonishing, unbreakable strength, allowing them to latch onto a wooden branch with an unyielding, vice-like hold. When the fierce, howling, chaotic storms of the Southern Ocean unexpectedly sweep inland, violently shaking the ancient towering trees until they groan and threaten to snap in the dark, the koala simply, calmly tightens this dual-thumbed, perfect grip. They gently close their eyes, slowly lowering their heavy head against the driving wind, completely and utterly secure in the profound cellular knowledge that they will absolutely never fall. And just as they are held completely and securely by the immense, ancient strength of the towering tree, You are held completely, perfectly, and securely by the soft surface beneath you. You do not need to hold on to a single thought. You can simply, easily let go. Let the heavy, comfortable bed support your entire relaxed weight. Every single muscle in your body is loosening, melting, as your quiet mind floats down, down, down into a deep, uninterrupted, endless peace. The canopy of your mind is perfectly quiet now. Sleep is near. The profound, undisturbed peace of that deep, motionless slumber is guarded by a pair of exquisite, highly sensitive sentinels resting upon their head. Emerging gently from the round, soft, heavy silhouette of their resting skull are two large, beautifully tufted ears, broad, curving instruments wrapped securely in a thick, protective, insulating lining of brilliant white and deep charcoal fur. As the silver, quiet light of the moon shifts slowly across the vast canopy, illuminating the microscopic, shimmering dust suspended in the cool midnight air, these ears act as perfect, living parabolic reflectors. They are constantly, gently filtering the vast, chaotic symphony of the deep, sprawling bush, catching the absolute faintest, distant rustle of a single, falling leaf, or the soft, distant, warning snap of a dry twig miles down in the shadowed, fern-filled valleys. Even while lost completely in the heaviest, most impenetrable depths of their trance-like sleep, these velvet-rimmed dishes remain softly, flawlessly attuned, turning incrementally toward the shifting wind, gently sweeping the heavy darkness for any disruption to their endless floating tranquility. The invisible, swirling geometry of the wind and sound flows seamlessly into the visual geometry of the forest when those eyes finally, heavily flutter open. If you were to gaze closely into the eyes of a koala caught in a solitary glowing beam of dappled golden sunlight, you would not see the round, circular pupils of a grazing creature of the plains. Instead, resting deep within a pool of liquid, warm amber, you would find striking, narrow, vertical slits. A remarkable, almost feline adaptation, incredibly rare among the marsupials of this ancient sun-baked land. These vertical apertures are magnificent tools of visual precision, designed specifically to calculate the dizzying, terrifying depths of the vertical wooden world they inhabit. As the shadows of the immense eucalyptus trunks stretch, warp, and distort in the dying apricot light of the afternoon, these slit pupils expand and contract with absolute perfection. They perfectly measure the exact precarious distance to the next swaying branch, ensuring that every slow, deliberate reach is calculated with flawless, mathematical certainty, completely eliminating the anxiety of the fall. The sharp, focused, crystal clarity of that vision leads us effortlessly to the invisible, heavy, swirling world of scent that aggressively blankets the high canopy. Before a single, silver-green leaf is ever tasted or plucked from its stem, it is subjected to a rigorous, deeply sophisticated chemical analysis by a large, leathery, profoundly sensitive nose. The eucalyptus forest is a vast, shimmering sea of volatile, dangerous oils, and the toxicity of the leaves wildly and constantly fluctuates with the shifting, unpredictable seasons, the mineral quality of the soil below, and the exact ancient age of the tree itself. With eyes half closed in deep, quiet concentration, the koala leans forward slowly, drawing the cool, highly aromatic air deep into its complex, winding nasal cavities. It is smelling the very chemistry of the leaf, identifying the invisible, microscopic concentrations of poison, and expertly, calmly rejecting the leaves that are too harsh, seeking only the youngest, sweetest, most perfectly balanced foliage to slowly fuel its quiet, burning internal engine. And as you breathe in, drawing the cool, still, peaceful air of your own room deep into your lungs, you too are instinctively filtering out the harsh noise and the heavy stress of the waking world. You're absorbing only the quiet. You're taking in only what heals your physical body, letting your chest rise and fall in a perfect, unhurried, rhythmic swell, sinking deeper and deeper still into the absolute enveloping safety of the soft space beneath you. The texture of this perfect selective nourishment introduces a fascinating, entirely hidden architecture within the dark warmth of their mouths. When the ideal, fragrant silver cluster of leaves is finally selected and cleanly snapped from the wooden branch, it meets a jaw brilliantly and specifically engineered for the monumental, endless task of chewing tough fibre. Right behind their sharp, specialised front incisors, which are designed to perfectly snip the woody, resistant stems, there is a wide, unexpected, completely toothless gap, a smooth space known by biologists as a diastema. This empty, cavernous space is not a biological flaw, but a brilliant, intentional design of nature, a hollow, waiting, comfortable chamber. It allows the koala to continuously snip and intimately gather a large, thick, dense bundle of fresh foliage, holding the soft green mass comfortably within their mouth, before passing it slowly, patiently back to the heavy, flat, grinding molars at the very back. It is a built-in temporary vault for their evening harvest. This internal, soft gathering space gently expands as the cool night stretches endlessly on, revealing yet another hidden, profound comfort of their slow, deliberate existence. The koala possesses highly flexible, accommodating internal cheek pouches, soft, stretching pockets of muscular skin lining the inside of their face. As they chew the heavy, fibrous paste of the gum leaves, breaking down the tough cell walls, they will often gently pack a portion of the unswallowed fragrant green mass deeply into these pouches. As the heavy, intoxicating, narcotic drowsiness of the eucalyptus oil begins to physically wash over their small brain, and their heavy eyelids become simply too exhausting to keep open, they can effortlessly stop chewing. They simply drift back into their deep, motionless trance, with their cheeks comfortably full and warm, saving a small, leafy, medicinal morsel to gently munch on when they stir hours later in the dark, completely, beautifully blurring the gentle lines between the physical act of eating and the ethereal state of dreaming. The profound, quiet intimacy of this dreaming harvest is heightened by the absolute staggering exclusivity of their palate. While the sprawling, endless, shimmering expanse of the Australian bush is aggressively dominated by more than 600 distinct, magnificent, towering species of eucalyptus trees, this sprawling green buffet is a complete illusion to the creature above. To the highly specialised, incredibly delicate internal chemistry of the koala, the vast, overwhelming majority of these towering giants are entirely inedible, completely barren columns of useless wood and toxic, burning leaves. Out of hundreds upon hundreds of species, they will only consume the leaves of a mere handful, perhaps 30 distinct types, such as the weeping manna gum, the dark swamp gum, and the pale blue gum. They exist completely surrounded by a world of staggering, overwhelming visual abundance, yet they walk a microscopic, razor-thin tightrope of survival, entirely, peacefully dependent on finding the exact, specific, localized flavour of canopy their ancient bodies demand to simply survive the night, recognizing this incredible, deeply focused simplicity. Your own mind naturally, effortlessly begins to let go of the thousands of chaotic, unnecessary, tangled thoughts pulling at your attention. You do not need to hold them all. You only need this one, single, solitary moment of quiet. Let the unnecessary noise simply drift away into the shadows like leaves falling from a high branch, leaving your centre peaceful, clear, and beautifully, profoundly still. The heavy, intoxicating medicinal oils from those few, carefully chosen trees sink deep into the koala's body, triggering a miraculous, completely silent defense mechanism within their deepest organs. Hidden far beneath their ribs, bathed constantly in the slow, pulsing, hypnotic rhythm of their low heartbeat, lies a profoundly specialized, incredibly efficient liver. This dark, vital, heavy organ is the unsung, invisible hero of the canopy, a biological, tireless alchemist constantly working the quiet night shift. The eucalyptus oils, known as powerful terpenes, would rapidly induce violent illness or absolute fatal liver failure in almost any other mammal attempting to consume them in such massive, daily, overwhelming quantities. But the koala's liver is uniquely, beautifully equipped with highly specific, complex, naturally occurring enzymes designed precisely to bind to these toxic molecules, gently breaking their dangerous chemical bonds, neutralizing their threat completely and safely, quietly packaging the waste to be harmlessly washed away. It is a constant, invisible, life-saving purification happening entirely without effort, while they simply sit, rest, and breathe in the moonlight. Echoing this internal, unseen, miraculous purification is a beautiful, highly physical ritual of external cleansing that occurs when the pale, golden dawn light first pierces the blue, heavy mist of the deep valleys. To maintain the thick, insulating perfection of their silver-grey woolly coat, they possess a hidden, highly specialized evolutionary tool on their powerful hind feet. If you were to look very closely at their back paws as they rest upon the bark, you would see that the second and third toes are strangely, beautifully fused together, bound entirely by skin, yet tipped perfectly with two separate, incredibly sharp, curving, miniature claws. This phenomenon is called syndactyly, and it provides the resting koala with a perfect built-in dual-pronged grooming comb. Reaching down with slow, deliberate stretching flexibility, they use these fused toes to meticulously, deeply rake through their dense wool, expertly removing the tangled, sticky sap, the accumulated dusty bark, and the tiny, unseen insects of the forest, ensuring their coat remains a flawless, pristine, impenetrable armor against the shifting elements of the sky. The texture of this freshly combed, immaculate deep fur reveals a final, brilliant structural defense against the weeping grey skies of the bitter southern winter. The thick hair on a koala's broad back does not simply grow in a random, chaotic, outward direction. It is distinctly, purposefully, mathematically patterned by nature. Along the very centre of their spine, the fur creates a natural, distinct, perfectly straight parting, a subtle, rising ridge where the hairs angle sharply downward and outward toward their soft flanks. When the torrential, icy, relentless rains of the storm season finally arrive, turning the canopy into a dark, roaring, terrifying waterfall, this natural parting acts exactly like the steep, pitched roof of a masterfully built wooden cabin. The heavy, freezing sheets of water strike their back and are immediately efficiently channeled away down their curved sides, entirely prevented from ever soaking through the dense undercoat, leaving the warm, dry, quietly beating heart hidden safely, deeply beneath, utterly untouched by the storm raging around them. The quiet, persistent, drumming rhythm of the falling rain against that waterproof coat flawlessly mirrors the slow, unavoidable, gentle passage of time itself. A deep geological time measured for the koala not by abstract years, but by the slow, continuous physical grinding of their teeth. The silvery eucalyptus leaves they rely upon so heavily are incredibly, deceptively abrasive, laced heavily with tough microscopic crystals of silica that wear down bright enamel precisely like coarse sandpaper, repeatedly dragged over soft wood. Over a long decade of quiet, solitary, peaceful nights spent chewing in the dark heights, their sharp, cutting dental ridges slowly, inevitably become completely smooth and flat. In the wild, untamed bush, it is the simple, gentle, painless wearing away of these teeth that gracefully dictates the natural twilight of their long, peaceful lives. When they can no longer grind the tough leaves, they simply quietly return their heavy bodies to the soft, welcoming earth of the shaded forest floor. Their gathered energy gently, seamlessly fading back into the deep, ancient waiting root systems of the very trees that sustained them for a lifetime. A perfectly complete, beautiful circle of life, profound in its quiet, unbroken, utterly natural dignity. And as you feel the gentle, rhythmic, endless turning of this great natural ancient cycle, you too are allowed to simply, finally surrender. The edges of the day are completely, entirely worn away. It is time to truly rest. Let the heavy, comfortable warmth of deep sleep wash fully over you, releasing your final grip on the waking hours, drifting softly, quietly, perfectly, and endlessly into the deep, welcoming, absolute dark. The profound, absolute dark of that waiting, welcoming earth mirrors the most secret, hidden beginnings of their very existence. A journey that begins not in the bright, swaying heights of the canopy, but in the ultimate microscopic safety of the womb. When a koala is first formed, it does not linger in the internal darkness for many long seasons like the grazing creatures of the plains. Instead, the mother's body creates a miracle of breathtaking, accelerated efficiency. For a mere 33 fleeting days, a timeline so impossibly brief it feels like a passing thought, the tiny embryo develops. It is a biological whisper, a rapid, silent gathering of the most essential life forces needed to simply exist. Before the moon has even had the chance to complete a single, full, luminous cycle in the night sky above the forest, the joey is born into the world, blind, entirely hairless, completely devoid of hearing, and barely the size of a single soft jelly bean resting in the palm of your hand. This incredibly brief window of internal gestation means that the true, harrowing journey of birth takes place entirely on the outside, in the open air of the forest, guided by absolutely nothing but a brilliant, primal, overwhelming sense of smell and the staggering, disproportionate strength of its tiny, translucent forelimbs. This microscopic creature must navigate a vast, terrifying wilderness of its mother's dense fur. It is a blind, vertical climb through a thick, tangled forest of wool. Pulling itself upward, millimetre by millimetre, completely unassisted by the mother, she simply sits in absolute statuesque stillness, allowing the ancient, flawless instincts written perfectly into the joey's DNA to guide it flawlessly upward, away from the cool air, toward the intoxicating chemical scent of milk, and finally tumbling safely over the muscular rim of the downward-facing pouch, sinking gratefully into the warm, expansive, eternal dark. Echoing this microscopic delicacy and quiet determination are the deeply intimate hidden sounds that eventually fill that soft, downward-facing sanctuary. While the vast, sprawling forest miles around them might occasionally echo with the loud, chest-rattling, terrifying bellow of a dominant male asserting his presence in the night, the language shared between a mother and her hidden joey is an entirely different, miraculously gentle symphony. Deep within the insulated walls of the pouch, they communicate using a series of impossibly soft rhythmic clicks, gentle, breathy squeaks, and low, vibrating murmurs that are almost entirely imperceptible to the chaotic world outside. It is a secret acoustic language of absolute comfort and profound reassurance, a quiet, ongoing conversation of soft hums that gently vibrates through the mother's skin, letting the tiny developing creature know that it is tethered securely to a mountain of safety, floating high above the dangerous floor below. And as you listen to the quiet, steady rhythm of your own surroundings, you can feel the comforting, subtle vibrations of peace settling deeply into your own chest. Your breathing slows to perfectly match the gentle, reassuring murmurs of the resting forest, drawing the cool, still air in through your nose, and letting every single trace of the waking world out with a long, soft, effortless sigh. You are safely anchored here. You're completely held. There is nowhere else you need to be, and absolutely nothing else you need to do. The texture of this invisible acoustic bond is miraculously mirrored by another hidden sensory organ, delicately positioned to read the invisible floating chemistry of the vast forest. Resting quietly against the roof of the koala's mouth is a highly specialized ancient marvel of biology known as the vomeronasal organ. When the cool, damp night wind sweeps through the heavy branches, carrying the complex, overlapping, invisible ribbons of scent left behind by other wandering koalas, they do not just smell the air, they physically taste it. By slightly parting their lips and curling their soft upper palate in a subtle, almost undetectable gesture, they draw the pheromone-laden air directly over this sensitive internal membrane. In an instant, a burst of profound, detailed chemical information floods their slow brain, allowing them to instantly, silently, read the exact emotional state, the biological readiness, and the distinct individual identity of a neighbour miles away, all without ever opening their eyes or moving from their perfectly carved wooden seat. Drifting outward from the safety of this profound sensory awareness is the realization that the sprawling, tangled, chaotic geometry of the eucalyptus forest is not random to them. It is a meticulously, flawlessly memorized map. To our overwhelmed human eyes, the endless millions of silver-green leaves and pale, peeling trunks blend into a dizzying, repetitive, unbroken sea. But within the quiet, peaceful mind of a koala, their specific home range is perfectly charted and deeply understood. They mentally categorize the ancient timber around them with stunning, deliberate precision, recognizing distinct food trees that offer the sweetest, most intoxicating leaves, completely separate from the thicker, wider, more robust home trees, perfectly designed for shelter, shade, and deep sleep. They navigate this three-dimensional floating neighborhood with the slow, confident, unerring memory of an ancient librarian walking gracefully through the familiar towering aisles of a silent, deeply loved archive. This solid, comforting architecture of those home trees perfectly supports a physical skeleton brilliantly, uniquely adapted to curl into a tight, protective, flawless sphere. If you were to gently trace the skeletal framework of the koala hidden far beneath their thick, woolly coat, you would discover a rib cage that is distinctly different from almost every other grazing creature. Instead of the sweeping, elongated barrel of 13 pairs of ribs, the koala possesses only 11. This seemingly small biological subtraction is, in reality, a masterful stroke of evolutionary design. It creates a much shorter, highly compact, incredibly flexible torso, completely eliminating the rigid bulk that would prevent them from pulling their heavy knees tightly against their chest. It is a skeleton mathematically engineered for the beautiful geometry of the curl, allowing them to fold seamlessly inward, locking their warmth deep inside and becoming a perfect, impenetrable resting orb of soft grey fur suspended high against the bruised purple of the twilight sky. Feeling the perfect supporting structure of your own body resting heavily upon the soft surface beneath you, you recognize the deep, intelligent design of your own need for profound rest. Your shoulders unlock, dropping heavily downward into the comforting dark. The muscles of your back soften, sinking entirely into the mattress. You're curling inward, away from the demanding noise of the light, finding your own perfect internal sphere of pure, unbroken tranquility, drifting beautifully downward. This perfect internal cool is not merely an emotional state, but a fascinating, deeply ingrained physiological truth that governs their entire unhurried existence. To survive perfectly on a diet so remarkably low in accessible calories, the koala operates with an extraordinarily unusually low basal body temperature. While the fierce, demanding predators of the forest burn bright and hot with relentless, exhausting, hungry energy, the koala rests at a remarkably cool, deeply subdued 36.6 degrees Celsius. Their internal biological furnace is set to an eternal, slow-burning, quiet simmer. This low temperature dramatically, beautifully reduces the amount of precious energy required, to simply keep their heart beating and their lungs drawing air. They are the absolute masters of the slow burn, living quietly in the cool shadows, perfectly content to operate in a beautifully decelerated gear, watching the frantic, burning world rush violently past them from the safety of the silent canopy. The sudden, powerful swell of adrenaline is a profoundly rare, almost alien occurrence in this quiet, low-temperature existence. But when it arrives, the internal machinery of their body responds with staggering, breathtaking elasticity. When a koala must suddenly, rapidly ascend a towering, completely sheer, smooth-barked trunk to escape an unexpected, terrifying threat from the forest floor below, their large, heavy heart instantly rockets into a thundering, rapid, explosive rhythm, pumping highly oxygenated, dark blood aggressively to their powerful, muscular forelimbs. Yet the true miracle is not the exertion, but the astonishing, immediate recovery. The very second they reach the absolute safety of the high, swaying canopy and lock their double thumbs around a secure branch, their heart rate plummets. Within mere moments, the frantic, thundering drumbeat completely vanishes, replaced instantly by a slow, profound, rhythmic, hypnotic pulse. It is an extraordinary biological mastery over stress, an innate, flawless ability to instantly switch off the panic and seamlessly re-enter the deep, welcoming stream of peace. The luminous, mirrored glow of that peaceful existence is most visible when the forest is plunged into the absolute suffocating, pitch-black darkness of a moonless, overcast night. When all other creatures are utterly blind, lost in the shadows, the koala's eyes undergo a stunning, invisible transformation. Hidden far behind the delicate, specialized retina of their eye lies a brilliant biological mirror, a specialized layer of highly reflective tissue known as the tapetum lucidum. When the absolute faintest, weakest glimmer of ambient starlight manages to pierce the thick, heavy canopy, it passes through their retina, strikes this hidden mirror, and bounces back directly through the optical receptors a second time. It effectively doubles the available light in the dark, illuminating the midnight branches with a ghostly, shimmering silver-green clarity, allowing them to navigate the dangerous, swaying heights with perfect, flawless precision, wrapped entirely in a glowing, nocturnal vision that the human eye could never, ever comprehend. The cool, enveloping weight of the shadows sometimes meets the literal, flowing weight of water in the most unexpected, staggering displays of physical adaptability. It is a deeply held, common assumption that these slow, tree-bound creatures are entirely terrified of the swirling, rushing rivers that quietly cut through the dense Australian valleys. Yet, when the heavy, torrential, seasonal rains flood the deep gullies, completely isolating their towering home trees in a vast, dark, rising sea of brown water, they do not just sit and slowly starve. With a surprising, deliberate, completely unhurried grace, they will gently lower themselves from the bark and slide silently into the freezing, swirling depths. Using the immense, thick musculature of their grasping arms and the powerful, driving kick of their back legs, they are incredibly strong, remarkably buoyant, and completely capable swimmers. They move through the heavy water with their dark noses held cleanly above the surface, navigating the flooded forest with the same slow, determined, unwavering focus they use to climb, before finally, quietly pulling their dripping, heavy bodies out onto the safe, dry bark of a new, welcoming tree. And just as they emerge from the heavy water into the safety of the wood, you are emerging from the heavy, rushing currents of your conscious thoughts into the ultimate, serene safety of deep sleep. The waters of your mind have completely calmed. The surface is smooth as glass. You are held. You are drifting. The slow, perfect rhythm of the sleeping forest is completely, permanently interwoven with your own heartbeat, drawing you deeper and deeper and deeper still into the endless, beautiful dark. The endless beautiful dark of that deep internal sleep is further protected by an invisible, floating, highly fragrant force field, an aromatic aura that constantly, silently surrounds their resting form, as the blazing golden light of the late afternoon pierces the thick dusty canopy, illuminating massive swirling clouds of tiny frantic forest insects. The sleeping koala remains an absolute serene island of untouched peace, because their diet consists so overwhelmingly of the highly potent, heavily medicinal eucalyptus leaf. The volatile oils do not simply pass through their digestive tract, they seep slowly, continuously outward through every single microscopic pore in their pale skin. Their thick grey fur becomes deeply saturated with a natural potent chemical perfume. A sharp, clean, piercing scent of camphor and crushed mint that naturally flawlessly repels the biting, buzzing swarms of the humid forest. They do not need to twitch, or swat, or violently shake off the swarm. They simply exist, breathing slowly in the dappled light, perfectly enveloped in a deeply calming, fragrant shield that keeps the chaotic, demanding world entirely at bay. The physical texture of this expansive, floating, protective aura beautifully mirrors the uniquely open, expansive architecture of their very bones. If you were to watch a koala slowly awaken in the heavy blue twilight and reach out to grasp a new, distant branch, you would witness a staggering, almost impossible range of lateral motion. Unlike many of the earthbound running mammals whose shoulders are locked strictly into a forward, driving plane, the koala possesses a beautifully elongated, highly developed clavicle, a specialized collarbone perfectly engineered for the embrace. This magnificent structural adaptation allows them to spread their heavy, muscular arms incredibly wide, wrapping their thick, powerful limbs completely around the immense, ancient, smooth-barked girth of the oldest, widest gum trees in the forest. It is an anatomy built entirely for holding on, an internal skeletal framework designed specifically to offer a permanent, unwavering physical embrace to the silent, towering wooden giants that sustain them. When the blinding, white-hot, relentless heat of the deep Australian midsummer eventually rises to challenge this cool, shaded embrace, a fascinating, profoundly delicate ritual of thermal regulation begins, because they are beautifully, entirely devoid of the sweat glands that cover our own skin. They cannot rely on a simple, invisible mist of perspiration to cool their heavy, woolly bodies. Instead, as the hot, shimmering air begins to visibly distort and warp the green canopy around them, they engage in a slow, highly deliberate hypnotic behavior. Gently unfolding their arms from their tight resting sphere, they begin to slowly, meticulously lick the pale, sparsely furred skin on the inside of their heavy forearms. As the moisture meets the hot, dry, unforgiving wind, it rapidly evaporates, drawing the intense, dangerous heat directly out from the surface of their coursing, dark blood. It is a slow, methodical, deeply focused act of self-soothing, creating their own personalized, microscopic breeze, entirely neutralizing the overwhelming fire of the sun through the simple, patient application of time and focus. And as this deep, cooling, profound relief washes over the resting creature, you can feel a similar, sweeping wave of physical release moving slowly down through your own body. The heat of your day, the burning, frantic friction of your waking thoughts, is evaporating completely into the cool, still air of your room. Your breathing slows, deepening into a perfect, unhurried rhythm. The tension in your jaw completely dissolves. The heavy, lingering weight behind your eyes simply melts away. You're safe. You're cooling down. You're drifting, beautifully, softly drifting. The gentle, continuous rhythm of that cooling evaporation draws our slow focus outward, to the precise, miraculous geometry of the very leaves they hide amongst. The eucalyptus leaf itself is not a broad, flat, welcoming solar panel. like the leaves of the deep, humid jungle. It is a harsh, leathery, perfectly adapted survivor of the sun-baked continent. To avoid the punishing direct radiation of the midday glare, these long sickle-shaped leaves hang perfectly, heavily vertical on their stems, presenting only their razor-thin silver edges to the sky. As the brilliant light falls through this vertical metallic foliage, it creates a deeply complex shimmering barcode of fragmented light and long cooling microshadows. The koala does not just sleep anywhere. They possess an extraordinary intuitive mastery of this shifting geometry, carefully, deliberately positioning their heavy bodies in the precise, intersecting pockets of these deep vertical shadows, moving with the slow turning clock of the sun to remain forever bathed in the cool, fragmented, dappled dark. The shifting, varying quality of these deep shadows tells a much larger, sprawling, continent-wide story of adaptation and silent, beautiful change. As the vast, invisible map of the Australian landscape stretches endlessly southward, moving from the hot, humid, sun-drenched north down toward the freezing, bitter winds of the Southern Ocean, the physical form of the koala seamlessly, miraculously transforms to meet the Earth. In the bright, tropical northern forests, they are a lighter, smaller, almost delicate presence, their fur short, pale and incredibly fine, designed to effortlessly release the tropical heat. But as our journey drifts thousands of miles south, into the deep, misty, freezing valleys, the creature shifts. The southern koalas are massive, incredibly heavy, dark, brooding silhouettes. Draped in a lush, impossibly thick chocolate brown and deep charcoal wool that resembles a heavy gathering storm cloud, they are perfectly, beautifully moulded by the specific temperature of the exact patch of earth they call home, a living, breathing reflection of the sky above them. Echoing this quiet, flawless adaptation to the physical landscape is the invisible, deeply respected, and utterly non-violent social hierarchy that floats silently among the high, swaying branches. In a world where fierce territorial predators constantly tear at each other for dominance in space, the koala operates on a vastly different, profoundly peaceful frequency. The dominant, towering alpha male of a sprawling forest region does not need to resort to exhausting, bloody conflict to maintain his invisible kingdom. His dominance is asserted entirely through the sheer, heavy, undeniable gravity of his physical presence, and the incredibly complex, lingering, musky scent he leaves pressed deep into the ancient bark. He is a silent, heavy anchor in the canopy, a quiet, watching guardian. The younger, smaller males simply read his invisible, aromatic messages lingering in the cool night wind and naturally, peacefully give way, shifting their own paths softly into the adjacent, unclaimed trees, completely avoiding confrontation, ensuring the vast, silent peace of the forest remains absolutely, permanently unbroken. Recognizing this perfect, peaceful, unspoken order, your own mind naturally, effortlessly organizes itself. The chaotic, competing voices of your daily obligations softly, quietly step aside, making room for the absolute, undeniable necessity of your own rest. You do not need to fight the thoughts. You simply let them pass by, moving gently out of your immediate awareness. The center of your mind is clear, vast, and profoundly quiet. You are sinking heavily, comfortably into this structured, beautiful peace. Let the gravity of sleep take you. The heavy, unmoving, statuesque form of that resting dominant watcher is not entirely perfectly still, however. Because deep within the silent velvet theatre of their mind, the world continues to move. When a koala finally sinks past the shallow layers of drowsiness and enters the profound, deeply submerged state of REM sleep, their physical body betrays the vivid, invisible journeys occurring within. If you were to watch them closely in the silver-painted light of the full moon, you would see a sudden, delicate twitch of a heavily clawed paw, a rapid, sweeping flutter of their dark eyes beneath heavily closed, soft lids, a tiny, almost imperceptible quiver of their sensitive, leathery nose. They are dreaming. In the absolute safety of the high fork, completely paralyzed by the biological grace of deep sleep, their small, smooth brain is vividly replaying the slow, deliberate climb, the satisfying, crisp snap of the perfect leaf, the feeling of the rushing, cool wind against their face. They are safely, beautifully exploring the waking world from the absolute sanctuary of their dreams. The phantom, twitching movements of those dreaming limbs hint at the true, coiled, explosive, muscular power that remains hidden entirely beneath their relaxed, hanging grey fur. While they are the absolute masters of the slow, unhurried, agonizingly patient crawl, when the deep biological necessity arises to bridge the terrifying, open, empty chasm between two towering trees, they transform. Their heavy, incredibly dense, profoundly muscular hind legs, built with the solid, unyielding power of an ancient spring, contract deeply. With a sudden, breathtaking, elegant explosion of kinetic energy, they launch their heavy bodies entirely into the open, empty air. It is a flawless, mathematical arc of flight, a moment of absolute, suspended, breathless gravity, before their heavy front paws strike the new, distant bark with a solid, resonant thud, their double thumbs locking instantly, flawlessly into the wood, immediately dissolving the explosive motion back into the perfect, unbroken, slow-motion rhythm of their climbing life. This sudden, beautiful, physical propulsion upward is fueled internally by something incredibly ancient, a microscopic living force that is exponentially, staggeringly older than the muscles, the bones, or the creature itself. The miraculous complex bacteria swarming deep within their elongated digestive tract, the very microscopic life that allows them to slowly pull energy from the toxic, burning leaves, did not begin with the koala. These specific, highly adapted microscopic organisms have existed on the changing volatile continent for millions upon millions of years, surviving ancient catastrophic fires, devastating continent-wide droughts, and the slow, grinding shift of tectonic plates. When a mother quietly, intimately passes this bacteria to a tiny blind Joey in the absolute darkness of the pouch, she's not just passing down a meal, she's handing over a living, breathing, ancient fossil. The koala is simply a warm, dark, moving vessel. Beautifully, perfectly carrying the microscopic, ancient memory of the Earth safely through the swaying canopy of the present moment. The dizzying, deep, invisible ancientness of that microscopic world whispers of a forgotten time when the physical, waking world was vastly, terrifyingly different. If we were to let our minds drift slowly backward on the heavy river of time, moving past the recent centuries, past the unrecorded millennia, deep into the freezing, shadowed epoch of the Pleistocene, we would find a forest inhabited by giants, the direct ancient ancestors of the creature sleeping so softly in the branches today were massive, heavy, ground-dwelling titans, the Phascolarctos stirtoni, the giant koala, a creature nearly the size of a modern bear, moving slowly and heavily through the damp prehistoric ferns. Over unimaginable sprawling oceans of time, as the continent slowly dried, and the harsh sun baked the soil, and the soft ferns gave way to the towering, toxic wooden towers of the eucalyptus, the koala beautifully, flawlessly adapted. They slowly, patiently shrank, trading their massive, heavy, earthbound bulk for the light, agile, suspended grace of the canopy, a millions of years long, gentle exhalation of size, perfectly distilling their physical form until they were light enough, quiet enough, and peaceful enough to simply float amongst the leaves. And as you drift back through this ancient, endless, flowing river of time, you realize how beautifully, perfectly small your own daily worries truly are. They are nothing but fleeting, temporary shadows passing over the deep, ancient, permanent peace of the earth. You can let them go. You can completely, finally release your grip on the day. your physical form is heavy, sinking, perfectly supported by the quiet, waiting dark. The deep, slow, ancient rhythm of the sleeping forest is the only reality that matters now. Sleep is here, deep, unbroken, and beautiful. Sleep. The deep, unbroken sleep of this ancient survivor is never truly isolated from the vast breathing world around it. For even in the absolute suffocating pitch black of a completely overcast midnight, they navigate the swaying, dangerous heights with the delicate, trembling grace of a phantom. Protruding softly from the pale, leathery skin of their rounded muzzle are clusters of highly specialized, incredibly sensitive vibrissae. Long, wiry, perceptive whiskers that act as a microscopic tactile radar. These are not mere hairs, but highly innovated biological antennas deeply rooted into the vast sensory networks of their smooth brain. As the cool, damp night wind rushes silently through the invisible, heavily crowded branches, these whiskers capture the absolute faintest, shifting currents of air, detecting the solid, physical density of an unseen wooden branch long before their sharp claws ever need to reach out. They can feel the profound, rough texture of the peeling bark, the exact mathematical proximity of the surrounding leaves. All through the gentle, bending pressure of these delicate, trembling threads, completely mapping the darkened, chaotic world through the pure, undeniable language of touch. The subtle, shifting currents of that cool night wind carry more than just physical presence. They carry the vast, hidden acoustic life of the entire sprawling continent. To capture this unseen symphony, the heavy, tufted, brilliant white and grey ears resting atop their skull do not merely listen. They actively, independently hunt for sound. With a deeply fascinating, almost robotic precision, a koala can swivel one large saucer-like ear entirely forward, focusing intensely on the sharp, sudden crack of a falling seed pod miles away, while simultaneously rotating the other ear completely backward, gently sweeping the dark, empty space behind them for the silent, rushing wings of a hunting owl. It is a dual, splitting, deeply divided acoustic awareness, an incredibly complex biological ability to split their mind in two perfectly equal halves, remaining flawlessly anchored in the present moment, while silently monitoring the vast, echoing histories of the deep forest behind them. As the deep, heavy velvet of the night gradually begins to thin, giving way to the pale, fragile, bruising lavender of the early dawn, the shifting, revealing light exposes a masterful, breathtaking illusion woven directly into the very fibres of their coat. To look up from the damp, shaded forest floor into the towering bright canopy is to stare directly into a blinding, fractured mosaic of silver light and pale sky. Here, the koala's bright, strikingly white chest and soft, pale underbelly become completely, utterly invisible, seamlessly blending into the glowing, scattered light of the heavens above. Yet, if a hunting eagle were to circle high above, gazing down into the dark, tangled, confusing depths of the eucalyptus branches, the koala's broad, deeply charcoal and slate-grey back perfectly mimics the heavy, pooling shadows of the ancient timber. It is a biological miracle known as countershading, a perfect two-way cloak of complete invisibility, allowing them to float suspended between the bright sky and the dark earth, an unmoving, silent ghost perfectly hidden from both the heavens and the soil. Recognizing this perfect, flawless safety, your own mind naturally completely wraps itself in a soft, heavy cloak of invisibility. You are perfectly hidden from the demands of the waking day. The bright, sharp anxieties of tomorrow cannot see you, and the heavy, pulling regrets of yesterday cannot find you. You're suspended perfectly in this exact quiet moment, safe, secure, and profoundly undisturbed. Just breathe, drawing the quiet in and letting the tension go. The quiet, invisible presence of the floating koala is, however, permanently, physically recorded upon the very architecture that holds them. As they slowly, methodically ascend the massive towering columns of the smooth-barked eucalyptus, the pale, powdery ghost gums and the shedding ribbon trunks of the manna gums. Their incredibly sharp, deeply curved, twin-thumbed claws leave a distinct, lasting, physical memory. They carve deep, parallel, vertical scars directly into the living silver skin of the tree. These pockmarks and deep, ragged scratches do not heal completely. They stretch and darken as the ancient tree continues to grow, becoming a beautiful, sprawling, braille-like language written across the vast forest. A deeply trained eye can gently trace these dark, rising scars upward into the canopy, reading the silent, generational history of exactly who has climbed, who has rested, and who has safely sought the comforting heights over decades of unbroken, peaceful nights. The texture of these deeply carved, ascending scars occasionally leads in the opposite direction, pulling the creature slowly, deliberately down from the safety of the sky toward the dark, rich, damp floor of the earth itself. While they are the absolute, undisputed monarchs of the swaying canopy, there are rare, deeply instinctual moments when the complex chemistry of their toxic diet requires a profound, grounding counterbalance. Moving with heavy, cautious, deliberate steps upon the soft, leaf-littered ground, they will purposefully seek out specific mineral-rich patches of exposed dark clay and ancient soil. In a behaviour known as geophagy, they will quietly, patiently, consume small mouthfuls of the raw, dark earth. This fine, ancient dust acts as a brilliant internal digestive sponge, beautifully binding to the harsh, overwhelming phenolic toxins of the eucalyptus oil, neutralising the poison and delivering trace, vital minerals that the silver leaves above simply cannot provide. It is a deeply humbling, necessary communion with the ground, a physical lowering of their heavy bodies to kiss the very dust that anchors their towering world. This vital, dark earth, drawn deep into their bodies, perfectly mirrors the miraculous, microscopic retention happening within their highly specialised silent organs. In a vast, sun-baked landscape where the sprawling, muddy rivers can evaporate into cracked, blinding white salt pans for years at a time, the koala's body acts as a perfect, sealed biological vault. Their kidneys are evolutionary masterpieces of supreme, ultimate filtration, possessing an astonishing, densely packed architecture of microscopic tubules designed to reclaim every single microscopic droplet of life-giving water. Before any moisture is ever allowed to leave their body, these organs aggressively, perfectly filter it, drawing the hydration back into their dark, circulating blood and concentrating their waste to an incredibly extreme, highly efficient degree. They do not leak their precious, hoarded water into the dry world. They lock it away, turning their internal anatomy into a perfect self-sustaining oasis amidst the sprawling, burning aridity of the endless bush. And as you feel the deep, self-sustaining energy of your own resting body, you recognize that you already possess everything you need to heal. Your breathing is a perfect, sealed loop of restoration, taking the quiet energy in and letting the exhausting noise out. The deep reserves of your mind are untouched by the dry, demanding world outside. You are whole, you're contained, you're drifting downward into the soft, heavy, welcoming stillness, perfectly preserving your own essential energy. The heavily guarded, precious water locked inside them is the absolute vital fuel required to process the staggering, monumental daily harvest they must gather. To watch a koala eat in the deep blue twilight is to witness a slow, mesmerizing, endless ritual of pure, unhurried dedication. Because the silver, aromatic leaves are so incredibly poor in accessible calories, a single, solitary adult must consume an astonishing, overwhelming volume of foliage to simply keep their cool heart beating. Night after quiet night, they will patiently, methodically snip, gather, and heavily chew up to 2 full pounds of tough, fibrous, toxic matter. It is a slow, rhythmic, grinding mountain of work, an endless, meditative, internal fire fueled by a continuous, overwhelming waterfall of green leaves breaking down the ancient forest, one tiny, heavily chewed bite at a time, beneath the pale, sweeping light of the watching moon. This exhausting, endless internal labour demands a physical rest that goes far beyond simple relaxation. It requires a state of absolute mechanical, effortless paralysis. When the heavy, narcotic effect of the consumed oils finally washes over their small brain, and the crushing need for sleep completely overtakes them, they do not rely on the strength of their tired muscles to keep them safely suspended 80 feet in the empty air. Instead, they position themselves perfectly, deliberately into the tight V-shaped wedges of the thickest, most ancient wooden branches. Here, their unique, highly adapted skeletal geometry takes over entirely. The specific, complex arrangement of their joints and tough, fibrous tendons physically, mechanically locks into place under their own shifting weight. It is a flawless, passive, internal locking mechanism, completely disengaging the muscles. They can sink into the absolute, deepest, most profound layers of unmoving black unconsciousness, their bodies held securely not by effort, but by the brilliant zero-energy physics of their own bones gripping the ancient wood. The profound, unmoving stillness of that locked zero-energy sleep is not a selfish, isolated existence. It is a vital, beating, giving heart connected directly to the vast, sprawling ecosystem below. As the slow, 100-hour journey of digestion finally, quietly concludes in the dark, the koala returns the heavy transformed remnants of the canopy back directly to the earth. Their small, dry, fibrous droppings, completely stripped of their toxic oils and heavily packed with broken down organic matter, rain softly, silently down onto the shaded, damp forest floor. In a land notorious for its incredibly poor, ancient, heavily leached soils, this quiet, continuous shower of rich, pre-digested fertilizer is absolutely essential. It feeds the microscopic, crawling life in the dirt, slowly, beautifully nourishing the immense, deeply buried, blind root systems of the very same eucalyptus trees that sustain them. It is a perfect, unbroken, magnificent loop of life. The tree feeding the sleeper, and the sleeper quietly, gracefully feeding the deep, ancient foundations of the tree, feeling the perfect, unbroken circle of your own slow, steady breathing. You too are part of a deep, beautiful, natural rhythm. The rise and the fall of your chest is as ancient and as natural as the turning of the seasons in the great forest. You're perfectly woven into the quiet fabric of the night. There is no beginning and no end to this deep peace. Just a constant, gentle, beautifully slow continuation. Let go completely, sinking into the timeless dark. This timeless, endless, repeating cycle of the forest is mirrored perfectly by a deeply hidden, breathtakingly ancient history, woven invisibly into the very core of the koala's existence. If we were to zoom in past the thick fur, past the coursing blood, deep into the microscopic, spiraling architecture of their very DNA, we would find fragments of an ancient microscopic invader that long ago became family. Over sprawling, unimaginable millions of years, an ancient, sweeping viral infection, a retrovirus, did not destroy them. Instead, in a miracle of biological assimilation, the koala's body completely absorbed the invader, quietly neutralizing its threat and permanently locking the viral code directly into their own genetic blueprint. This endogenous retrovirus became a permanent inherited part of their species, an ancient microscopic memory of survival permanently etched into their cells. They're a living, breathing, sleeping museum, carrying the deep, complex, staggering history of the entire world, beautifully, safely locked inside a soft grey sphere, resting perfectly in the high, silent branches, completely at peace with the night. The profound, ancient history etched into their very cells creates a deep, resonant stillness that seems to slow the very air around the resting koala, a silence so thick it feels like a physical weight, pressing gently against the silver-green leaves. In this state of ultimate suspended animation, their internal metabolic rate is a staggering masterpiece of biological restraint, functioning at a level nearly 50% lower than most other mammals of their size. It is as if they have discovered a secret hidden doorway into a slower dimension of time, a quiet inner chamber where the heart beats with the deliberate unhurried rhythm of a mountain spring dripping into a deep stone pool. Every breath is a long, luxuriously slow event, every pulse of blood a quiet, purposeful journey through a body that refuses to be rushed by the frantic, spinning world. They are the living, breathing embodiment of the absolute minimum, a perfect, elegant calculation of exactly how little energy is required to exist in a state of total, unwavering grace. This internal, minimalist flame burns with a cool, steady light that reflects beautifully in the way they perceive the vast, shimmering colours of the forest canopy. While the world above is a riot of emerald, jade and brilliant silver, the koala's vision is subtly, perfectly tuned to a different frequency of truth. They possess a vision that is largely dichromatic, a soft, simplified palette that filters out the distracting, unnecessary brilliance of the red spectrum. To their quiet eyes, the forest is a soothing, cohesive sea of varied blues, deep greens and soft earthen yellows. This visual simplification is not a lack, but a profound, focusing gift. It strips away the chaotic noise of the flowering scrub and highlights the deep structural shadows of the trunks and the specific cool tonal signature of the perfect eucalyptus leaf. They see the world not as a frantic, colourful explosion, but as a calm, layered and deeply coherent map of shadows and sustenance. And as this simplified, soothing palette of blues and greens washes over your inner mind, you find that the bright, red-hot anxieties of the day are fading into a cool, distant blur. You do not need the full spectrum of your worries right now. You only need the soft, quiet shades of rest. Your breathing is deepening, slowing, pulling in the cool blue air and releasing the heavy grey shadows of tension. You're sinking, drifting, becoming part of the calm, monochromatic stillness of the deep midnight woods. The texture of this visual stillness flows seamlessly into the strange, wonderful, and deeply tactile architecture of their very feet, a foundation built for a life spent entirely in the vertical. On their powerful hind limbs, the koala possesses an enormous, muscular, and completely clawless thumb, a digit so large and so profoundly independent that it sits at a perfect right angle to the rest of the foot. When they move through the high, swaying branches, this massive leathery thumb provides a staggering structural counterbalance, wrapping around the smooth, slippery bark with the unyielding strength of a mountain climber's anchor. Because it is clawless, it relies entirely on the immense friction of its thick, ridged skin, a soft, powerful and silent grip that allows them to descend a tree head first with the same slow, controlled and confident grace as their ascent. It is a foot designed not for the flat finality of the earth, but for the infinite three-dimensional complexity of the sky. While the feet provide the anchor, the very centre of their being is protected by a hidden, internal shield of profound biological resilience. Within the deep, warm cavity of the koala's chest, the heart is not a fragile, delicate organ, but a resilient, heavily protected engine. It is encased in a remarkably thick, fibrous and protective sac known as the pericardium, a layer of tissue that is disproportionately robust compared to other marsupials. This internal armour acts as a constant, stabilising buffer, absorbing the physical shocks and the immense shifting pressures that occur as they wedge themselves into tight wooden forks or launch their heavy bodies through the open air. Even when they are fast asleep, their heart is held in a firm, constant and protective embrace, a secondary internal cradle that ensures the core of their life remains undisturbed, no matter how violently the storm-tossed branches might rock their world. The solid, unyielding safety of that internal cradle leads us outward to the magnificent, protective canopy of the trees themselves, particularly the way they respond to the koala's silent, heavy presence. In a beautiful, slow-motion dialogue between animal and plant, many eucalyptus species have developed the ability to withstand the koala's constant grazing harvest by producing an abundance of epicormic buds. These are hidden, dormant life forces tucked deep beneath the thick, fire-resistant bark. When a koala meticulously strips a branch of its leaves, the tree does not simply wither. It triggers these hidden reserves, sending out a sudden, vibrant burst of fresh, tender, bright green growth directly from the trunk itself. It is a generous, life-affirming response to being consumed, the tree actively reaching out to replenish the pantry of its silent grey resident, ensuring that the cycle of nourishment and rest is never truly broken, echoing this generous, quiet replenishment. Your own body is now entering its own phase of deep, silent repair. Just as the tree sends out new growth in the dark, your mind is quietly clearing away the old, exhausted thoughts, making room for the fresh, restorative energy of deep sleep. You can feel this renewal happening now, a slow, cool tide of healing moving through your muscles, from the tips of your toes, up through your heavy limbs, to the very center of your quiet, resting heart. You are being replenished. You are being restored. You are safe. This slow, tidal renewal is governed by a brain that, while smooth and seemingly simple, possesses a highly specialized magnified region dedicated entirely to the processing of the invisible world of scent. A significant portion of the koala's cerebral cortex is surrendered to the olfactory bulb, a massive biological processing center for the chemical signatures of the forest. To a koala, a single breath of wind is not just air, it is a dense, multi-layered, and incredibly detailed book of information. They can smell the exact age of a tree from a mile away. They can taste the approaching rain hours before the first cloud appears on the horizon. They can sense the subtle, chemical, warning signals sent out by a tree that is being overgrazed. They live in a rich, aromatic narrative that we can barely imagine. A world where every leaf has a unique, chemical voice, and the entire forest is an ongoing, scented conversation about survival, health, and the coming of the night. The invisible, aromatic narrative of the forest floor is guarded by a physical toughness that is often hidden beneath that soft, plush teddy bear exterior. A koala's skin is remarkably thick and leathery, particularly on their back and rump, where they spend the vast majority of their lives pressed against the abrasive, unforgiving bark. This skin is not just a covering, but a resilient protective hide, nearly twice as thick as the skin of a similarly sized mammal. It acts as a primary defense against the sharp, jagged remains of snapped branches and the rough, splintering textures of the ancient wood. Even their underbelly, though it looks soft and pale, is backed by a dense, muscular wall that protects their vital organs from the protruding obstacles of the vertical world. They are built like soft stones, yielding on the outside, but possess a core of incredible structural density that allows them to exist in perfect comfort where other creatures would find only pain. While they possess this stone-like density, their social world is governed by a surprisingly delicate, ethereal system of vocal boundaries. Beyond the famous low-frequency bellows of the males, the females and their young use a high-pitched, plaintive cry that sounds hauntingly similar to a human infant. This sound is not used for aggression, but for a profound, urgent reconnection. When a joey, having finally ventured a few inches too far from its mother's back, feels the sudden, cold isolation of the high branch, it releases this soft, high-pitched wail. The mother responds instantly, not with a loud call, but with a slow, deliberate and incredibly gentle movement, reaching out a long furred arm to pull the small creature back into the warm, scented safety of her chest. It is a sound that cuts through the wind and the rustle of the leaves, a fragile vocal thread that binds the generations together in the vast empty space of the canopy. The fragility of that vocal thread leads us to the surprising, almost liquid flexibility of their very ribs. As we've noted, the koala possesses fewer ribs than many other mammals, but these bones are also remarkably uniquely pliable, because they must frequently squeeze their heavy bodies into the narrow constricting crooks of branches. To find the ultimate shelter from the wind, their ribcage has evolved to be slightly compressible. This allows them to mould their physical shape to the architecture of the tree, tucking themselves into spaces that would seem far too small for their bulk. It is as if they are made of a dense, slow-moving clay, able to subtly shift their internal volume to achieve a state of perfect, snug, and unshakable security. They do not fight the shape of the tree, they become the shape of the tree, surrender their form to the wood until the two are indistinguishable in the fading light. And as you feel your own body moulding perfectly to the soft, supportive shape of your bed, you too are surrendering your form to the quiet architecture of rest. You're becoming liquid, heavy, and perfectly still. The boundaries between you and the soft fabrics around you are blurring, melting into a single cohesive state of total relaxation. You're tucked into your own, perfect, wooden fork of the world, safe from the wind, protected by the dark, sinking deeper and deeper still. The profound, melting stillness of their rest is finally, beautifully anchored by a biological anomaly that is shared with almost no other creature in the animal kingdom. Deep within the koala's vocal anatomy, they possess a set of extra vocal folds located at the junction of the oral and nasal cavities, entirely separate from the larynx. These are the velar vocal folds, and they are the secret behind their ability to produce sounds that are far, far lower than their physical size should allow. This allows a relatively small grey creature to vibrate the very air of the forest with the deep, resonant power of an elephant. It is a magnificent biological trick of the shadows, a way to sound like a giant while remaining a small, peaceful and hidden observer. It is the ultimate expression of their entire existence, possessing an immense, ancient and resonant power, but choosing to use it only to maintain the quiet, steady and beautiful equilibrium of their high, silver-green home. The deep, resonant vibration of those hidden folds is the final low note in the symphony of the night, a frequency that settles into the very marrow of the trees and the bones of the sleeper. The forest is quiet now. The light is gone. The journey of the 101 truths has settled into the vast, limitless library of your subconscious. You have listened, you have learned, and now you're ready to simply be. The koala is asleep. The tree is still, the earth is waiting. Sleep, deep, ancient, and absolute sleep. The deep resonant vibration of the night fading into the ancient wood draws our slow, heavy focus to the exact physical point where the sleeping creature meets the tree. Here, we discover a beautiful, profound evolutionary subtraction. Unlike the balancing, agile monkeys of the distant emerald jungles, or the sweeping terrestrial kangaroos bounding across the dusty plains far below, the koala possesses absolutely no tail. Over sprawling millions of years, the need for a balancing appendage completely dissolved into the silent air of the canopy. In its place, evolution sculpted a smooth, perfect, heavily padded sphere, a beautifully rounded rump protected by a highly specialized dense cartilaginous plate. When the pale silver light of the moon falls through the leaves and strikes their resting silhouette, there are no jagged lines, no unnecessary appendages disrupting the form. They are a flawless, unbroken orb of soft grey wool, perfectly, mathematically designed to sit motionless within the harsh, wooden angles of the towering eucalyptus, turning a jagged fork of timber into the softest, most customized resting place on Earth. The absolute, unyielding stability of this tailless sphere is secretly anchored by an incredibly low, perfectly placed center of gravity. Deep within the architecture of their broad, heavily furred hips lies a massive, flared pelvis, a skeletal structure that is disproportionately heavy and wide compared to the rest of their compact frame. This internal, hidden weight acts precisely like the heavy leaden keel of a beautifully crafted, slow-moving sailboat. It pulls their physical mass deeply and permanently downward, anchoring them firmly into the cradle of the branches. Even when the howling, unpredictable gales of the southern coast violently whip the canopy into a frenzy of thrashing green and cracking wood, the koala does not easily tip. Their heavy, grounded center holds them fast, allowing the upper half of their body to simply sway and roll gently with the chaotic wind, completely tethered to the profound, unbreakable gravity of the earth below. While that heavy, wide pelvis permanently anchors their lower body to the tree, the upper architecture of their skull hides an astonishing silent strength, completely obscured by their famously soft, fluffy face. Beneath those broad, endearing cheeks and the large, leathery nose lie the massive, heavily developed masseter muscles. These are the engines of the jaw, thick, powerful bands of tissue that anchor directly to a prominent bony ridge running along the very top of their skull, known as the sagittal crest. The koala may appear to be a creature of ultimate sleepy vulnerability, but their jaw possesses a crushing mechanical bite force that rivals some of the forest's most dedicated predators. It is an immense hidden power completely dedicated to a peaceful task, a staggering, bone-crushing strength used solely to perfectly, effortlessly grind the thick, leathery, heavily armoured leaves of the gum tree into a soft, digestible paste in the dark. And as you recognise this hidden, quiet strength resting perfectly within softness, you realise your own inner, profound resilience. You do not need to show your strength to the waking world for it to be real. You can let your own jaw completely relax now, parting your teeth slightly, letting the heavy, holding muscles of your face melt entirely into the dark. Your strength is still there, resting, deeply safe and perfectly quiet. The immense, grinding power of that hidden jaw is beautifully, deliberately offset by an incredibly small, quiet conductor resting deep within the soft fur of their throat. The koala's thyroid gland, the vital biological organ responsible for dictating the metabolic pace of the entire physical body, is remarkably, unusually tiny compared to other mammals of their stature. This microscopic governor acts as a permanent biological brake pedal. It ensures that the immense energy extracted by those powerful jaws is burned at an agonizingly, beautifully slow rate. It is the chemical reason why they cannot and will not be rushed. Their entire existence is chemically locked into an eternal, unhurried gear, a biological metronome permanently set to the slowest, most deliberate rhythm possible, allowing them to stretch a single solitary meal across a sprawling expanse of days. The slow, deliberate ticking of this internal chemical metronome carries a profound, whispering echo of a vastly different, forgotten world, a time millions of years ago when the dry, cracking, sun-baked Australian bush simply did not exist. The distant, heavy ancestors of the modern koala did not live in a landscape defined by fire and dust, but in vast, dripping, continent-spanning rainforests. The fossil record, hidden deep within the red earth, reveals that these ancient creatures thrived in a world of overwhelming humidity, lush green ferns and constant heavy rain. As the enormous grinding tectonic plates slowly shifted, and the ancient continent began to ruthlessly dry out over millions of years, the great rainforests retreated. The koala did not perish with the dying ferns, they simply stubbornly held onto the high canopy. They adapted, beautifully, flawlessly transforming alongside the continent, watching from the high branches as their wet green world slowly turned to silver, wood, and dry, blowing dust. The damp, humid scent of those lost ancient rainforests has slowly, over countless generations, distilled down into a hyper-concentrated, incredibly precise chemical signature that now paints the dry bark. If you were to observe the dark, bare, heavily pigmented patch resting in the centre of a mature male's brilliant white chest, you would be looking at a complex biological factory of communication. This specialised gland secretes a viscous, clear liquid heavily loaded with complex carboxylic acids. When the male rubs this chest patch against the rough peeling trunk of a chosen tree, he's not just leaving a scent, he's leaving a highly detailed chemical biography. This lingering, musky, almost sweet resin can survive the baking heat of the midday sun and the freezing chill of the midnight air, acting as a silent physical diary smeared into the wood, telling every passing creature exactly who stands watch over this specific swaying pillar of the canopy, breathing in the cool, still, peaceful air of your own quiet room. You can effortlessly let go of the complex histories and the detailed diaries of your waking day. The chemical rush of the hours past is completely washing away. You do not need to leave a mark on this moment. You only need to exist within it. The air is clear. Your mind is vast and beautifully empty. Let every heavy, lingering thought simply evaporate into the cool, silent shadows of the night. The dry, lingering chemistry of that scented bark is occasionally beautifully washed away by the immense, chaotic, sudden arrival of the seasonal southern storms. When the heavy, bruised, slate-grey skies finally break, turning the vast forest into a roaring ocean of falling water, a fascinating, completely silent ritual of survival begins. While we know they draw almost all their hydration invisibly from the leaves, during these torrential downpours, a phenomenon known as stem flow occurs. Huge, heavy sheets of silver water gather in the canopy and begin to rush rapidly down the deep, dark, vertical fissures of the eucalyptus trunks. The resting koala will gently lean forward from their dry, waterproof sphere, pressing their pale, leathery lips directly to the dark wood. They will slowly, rhythmically lick the running ribbons of fresh, freezing rainwater directly from the bark, catching the storm as it traces the ancient wrinkles of the tree, drinking the sky before it ever touches the earth below. The shimmering liquid silver of that captured rainwater finds a perfect, glowing reflection in the deep, amber pools of their waking eyes, as the heavy storm clouds eventually tear apart, revealing the brilliant, cold, piercing light of a full moon. An invisible, muscular adjustment occurs within their gaze. The vertical slit pupils of the koala are so profoundly, delicately sensitive to light that they do not merely contract under the fierce, burning glare of the midday sun. Even in the gentle silver illumination of a bright moonlit night, those dark, vertical apertures will tighten into incredibly thin, hair-like lines. It is a stunning, hypervigilant protection of their sensitive retinas. A biological shutter that completely controls the flood of nighttime illumination, ensuring that the glowing, pale trunks and the shimmering wet leaves never overwhelm their perfect, delicate nocturnal vision. The tight, flawless, protective contraction of that dark pupil perfectly mirrors another brilliant, highly muscular contraction designed purely for the absolute safety of the next generation. Deep beneath the thick, grey, waterproof fur of the mother's soft belly, the downward-facing opening of her pouch is not simply a loose hanging pocket. It is guarded by an incredibly strong, thick, circular sphincter muscle. When she must rapidly leap across a terrifying open chasm between two towering branches, or when she braces herself against the freezing sideways rain of a violent winter squall, she can consciously, completely flex this muscle. The opening of the pouch draws tight like a heavy biological drawstring, creating a perfectly sealed, waterproof, completely airtight sanctuary. The tiny, fragile Joey sleeping inside is entirely locked away from the chaotic, swirling violence of the outside world, held in an unwavering, warm, dark embrace of pure, impenetrable muscle. Feeling the complete, enclosed, perfect safety of that quiet, internal dark, your own mind naturally, effortlessly seals out the demanding noise of the outside world. The door to the day is softly, firmly closed. The harsh winds of your waking worries cannot reach you here. You're completely enveloped in a thick, heavy, protective blanket of profound rest. The space around you is warm. The space within you is beautifully, permanently calm, drifting further downward. This profound, layered physical security, from the hypervigilant contracting pupil to the heavily locked muscular pouch, allows them to experience the ultimate, rarest luxury of the wild, untamed bush, the slow, unhurried, graceful accumulation of time. While many small creatures of the forest floor live fast, burning frantic lives measured only in fleeting seasons, a koala drifting peacefully through the high branches can live a deeply extended life. In the quiet, undisturbed sanctuary of a healthy, sprawling canopy, they can watch the earth turn for up to 15 long, slow years. It is a quiet, beautiful aging process, marked not by sudden decline, but by a gentle softening of their movements, a subtle lightening of their thick grey wool, and an ever-deepening, profound stillness. They become the true, quiet elders of the forest, living libraries of the canopy, holding a decade and a half of silent sunsets, heavy rains, and slow, perfect breaths, fading effortlessly, day by day, into the endless rolling rhythm of the ancient waiting trees. The rolling, endless rhythm of those ancient waiting trees creates a profound visual deception, a masterpiece of a living camouflage painted directly into the high architecture of the forest. When the pale, sweeping light of the morning sun struggles to pierce the dense, overlapping layers of the eucalyptus canopy, it casts long, heavy, distorted shadows across the pale trunks. To a predator prowling the damp, fern-covered floor far below, the sleeping koala simply ceases to exist as an animal. Tucked tightly into the deep, V-shaped crotch of a towering branch, their rounded, tailless silhouette perfectly, flawlessly mimics a heavy burl, a natural bulbous knot of ancient grey wood bulging from the side of the tree. They do not just hide among the leaves, they become the very timber itself, a silent, unmoving extension of the tree's own ancient geometry, protected entirely by the brilliant passive illusion of being nothing more than resting wood. The geometry of this shadowed wooden illusion is intimately tied to a hidden, internal exchange of temperature, a beautiful, silent conversation between the blood of the animal and the sap of the tree. As the golden, blinding heat of the afternoon sun bakes the fragrant air, turning the canopy into a shimmering, exhaustingly hot canopy of green, the koala engages in a profound act of thermal communion. The massive, solid trunks of the eucalyptus trees, drawing immense volumes of cold water from deep beneath the shaded earth, possess a surface temperature significantly cooler than the surrounding stifling air. Slowly, deliberately unfolding their heavy limbs, the koala will press its pale, less insulated underbelly entirely flat against the smooth, cooling bark. They embrace the trunk with their entire physical form, allowing the deep subterranean chill of the living wood to physically draw the overwhelming heat directly from their coursing veins. It is a slow, deeply comforting transfer of energy. The tree silently, passively soothing the heated creature in a long, unmoving embrace. This deep physical embrace of the tree's architecture changes dramatically when the heavy, suspended creature finally decides to move, revealing a rhythm of climbing that is entirely unique to their hidden world. When a koala ascends the towering vertical columns of the ghost gums, they do not climb with the alternating hand-over-hand scramble of the jungle monkeys. Instead, they use a mesmerizing, rhythmic, bounding motion. Reaching upward with both powerful, double-thumbed hands simultaneously, they sink their sharp, curved claws deep into the bark. Then, in a single, fluid contraction of their massive back legs, they launch their entire body upward, bringing both back feet up to meet their hands in a synchronized echoing thud. It is a slow-motion, hypnotic bound, a rhythmic, pulsing ascent that looks less like climbing and more like a heavy, deliberate heartbeat moving vertically up the ancient pillar of the forest. And as you visualize this slow, rhythmic, upward heartbeat, you can feel the steady, calming pulse of your own resting body. Your heart is beating with a slow, deliberate, beautiful purpose. You do not need to scramble or rush. You are moving perfectly through this peaceful night at exactly the right pace. Let the heavy, comforting rhythm of your breath anchor you, sinking deeply into the soft, supporting wood of your own quiet sanctuary. You are perfectly supported. You are at peace. The rhythmic upward gravity of that steady climb is often guided by a microscopic, invisible map of water hidden entirely from the human eye. The koala does not wander aimlessly through the swaying canopy. They are highly attuned, biological dowsers, possessing an almost supernatural ability to read the internal, hydraulic tension of the vast trees. During the long, punishing, rainless stretches of the Australian summer, the moisture content within a single tree varies wildly, the lowest, oldest leaves becoming dry and brittle, while the absolute highest, newest tips hoard the last precious drops of liquid. Through an incredibly sophisticated, intuitive reading of the leaf's scent, texture, and subtle temperature, the koala can sense exactly which specific branch holds the highest, most life-sustaining concentration of water. They will slowly, deliberately migrate through the complex wooden maze of the canopy, drawn upward by the invisible pull of moisture, tracing the tree's internal plumbing with flawless, unhurried precision. Echoing this microscopic awareness of moisture is the profound, quiet milestone of a young joey discovering the world outside its mother's dark pouch. For an entire year, the tiny, fragile creature has known only the warm, enveloping darkness and the sweet, tailored nourishment of milk and specialized pap. But there comes a perfect, sun-dappled morning when the joey, clinging tightly to the broad, woolly expanse of its mother's back, reaches out a trembling, tiny, double-thumbed hand. For the very first time, it snaps a fresh, tender, pale green eucalyptus leaf from the stem. As it slowly, curiously chews, a completely new, overwhelming world of sensory information explodes within its small mind. The sharp, piercing, medicinal tang of the camphor oil, the tough, fibrous crunch of the cell walls, the cool, hidden moisture released from the leaf. It is an awakening, a quiet, beautiful initiation into the ancient, bitter and sustaining chemistry of the towering world it will call home forever. The lingering, potent oils from that first, crisp bite, and from the thousands of millions of bites that will follow, require a meticulous, continuous routine of personal care. To maintain the pristine, highly sensitive surface of their large, leathery noses, koalas engage in a slow, deeply satisfying ritual of facial grooming. They do not rely solely on their fused combing claws for this delicate task. Instead, finding a branch with the perfect peeling, abrasive texture of old bark, they will gently, repeatedly rub the soft sides of their face and their heavy snout directly against the wood. It is a slow, rhythmic scratching. A tactile, soothing friction that beautifully clears away the sticky, accumulating sap of the gum leaves, while simultaneously pressing their own, unique, subtle scent back into the grain of the tree. They are cleaning themselves while simultaneously quietly painting their home, a dual act of hygiene and belonging. Feeling the gentle, soothing rhythm of this quiet grooming, you can allow the lingering, sticky tensions of your own day to simply rub away. Any tight, holding sensations in your forehead, the tiny, strained muscles around your eyes, the heavy set of your jaw, they are all softening. You're wiping the slate completely clean. The friction of the waking hours is gone, leaving only a smooth, clear, and profoundly calm surface. Breathe in the cool, clear night, and let the absolute softness wash over your face. The cool, clear air drawn over that freshly cleaned nose enters a respiratory system that is a staggering marvel of suspended animation. When a koala finally sinks past the initial, drifting stages of sleep and enters the absolute deepest, most profound trenches of their daily rest, their physical need for oxygen plummets to an almost unimaginable low. If you were to sit perfectly still beside a resting koala, watching the rise and fall of their thick grey chest, you might wait agonizingly long moments to witness a single, solitary breath. Their respiratory rate slows to a mere fraction of its waking rhythm, their lungs drawing in the cool, shaded air with a slow, sipping delicacy that barely disturbs the downy fur on their belly. It is an existence poised brilliantly on the very edge of stillness, a biological magic trick where they draw just enough breath to stay tethered to the living world, while their mind floats perfectly free in the weightless dark. The profound, whispering silence of that slow breathing is occasionally magnificently shattered by a sound that travels not just through the air, but through the very bones of the earth. When a massive, dominant male releases his deep, mechanical, vibrating bellow into the blackness of the midnight forest, the sheer, low-frequency power of the call physically shakes the timber. The intense, rumbling acoustics travel directly down the solid, ancient trunk of the eucalyptus tree, bypassing the open air entirely, and sink deep into the sprawling, buried root systems. This means that a neighbouring koala, sleeping with its chest pressed firmly against a completely different tree miles away, does not just hear the call, they physically feel it. The warning, the presence, and the sheer power of the alpha vibrate upward through the dark soil, up the roots, and directly into the listener's bones, an invisible subterranean telephone line connecting the vast silent canopy through the deep, echoing language of vibration. This deep subterranean connection to the earth below holds an ancient inherited memory of the continent's most terrifying transformative force, the creeping red glow of the summer bushfire. The koala's mind contains a deeply buried instinctual respect for the scent of heavy smoke drifting on the hot northern wind. When the distant dry crackle of fire begins to whisper through the lower scrub, they do not panic and scramble downward to the dangerous exposed floor. Their ancient, perfectly honed instinct drives them in the opposite direction. They climb. They ascend with slow, deliberate, unwavering focus, moving past the thick, sturdy forks, pushing ever higher into the thinnest, most precarious swaying tips of the canopy. Here, in the absolute highest reaches of the sky, the intense, radiant heat of a low-burning ground fire cannot reach them. They simply curl tightly into a tiny grey ball, swaying wildly in the hot winds, trusting their lives completely to the ultimate, saving height of the ancient wooden towers. The unwavering trust they place in those towering wooden pillars deepens into a profoundly beautiful, almost melancholic exclusivity as the decades slowly pass. As a wild koala gracefully ages into the twilight of its long life, the sprawling, expansive, multi-tree territory of its youth begins to slowly, gently contract. The immense, tiring bounds between distant branches lose their appeal. Instead, the aging elder will quietly select just one or two massive, ancient, deeply familiar grandfather trees. These specific trees, holding the perfect combination of sweet leaves and deeply grooved, comfortable resting forks, become their entire contained universe. They form an ultimate, profound bond with a single patch of wood and leaf, stripping away the vastness of the forest to find perfect, absolute contentment in the familiar, the close, and the quiet. It is a graceful, slow surrender to the peace of a smaller world, finding the entirety of existence resting perfectly within the comforting shade of a single, ancient friend. And as you recognize the profound, beautiful peace of this small, perfectly contained world, you realize that your entire universe right now is simply the soft space of your bed. You do not need to roam through the vast, exhausting territories of tomorrow. You do not need to carry the weight of the wide world. Everything you need is right here, in the quiet, in the dark, and in the slow, perfect rhythm of your breath. Your world has gently, beautifully contracted down to this single safe moment. Let the edges blur. Let the quiet take you. Sleep. Deep, healing, and profound sleep. The gentle, slow surrender to that single, ancient grandfather tree is made possible by an invisible, fluid masterpiece hidden deep within the architecture of their resting skull. As the immense, towering eucalyptus sways and groans in the invisible, rushing currents of the night wind, the koala does not need to wake to hold on. Deep within the cavernous spaces of their inner ear, bathed in the absolute dark, lies a highly complex, flawlessly calibrated vestibular system. This delicate maze of microscopic, fluid-filled canals acts as a perfect living gyroscope, even when they are plunged into the deepest, most profound trenches of rapid eye movement sleep. Entirely paralyzed and completely unaware of the waking world, this heavy fluid gently, perfectly shifts. It sends a constant, automatic, subconscious signal directly to the heavy muscles of their locking thumbs, making microscopic, invisible adjustments to their grip. They're biologically tethered to the shifting center of gravity, perfectly riding the chaotic, rolling waves of the canopy with the absolute, effortless grace of a sleeping sailor on a dark, heavy ocean. The dark, heavy ocean of the midnight canopy eventually, inevitably gives way to the blinding, radiant power of the Australian dawn. When the sun finally breaks the horizon, flooding the vast, silent forest in a wash of sharp, golden, unforgiving light, the koala's beautiful silver-grey coat reveals another layer of its miraculous design. The individual hairs that make up this thick, woolly armour are not merely insulators against the freezing cold, they are highly specialised microscopic prisms. They are naturally mathematically structured to violently scatter and deflect the harsh, punishing ultraviolet radiation that beats relentlessly down upon the sun-baked continent. As the searing, white-hot light strikes their broad, sleeping back, it does not penetrate the pale skin below. Instead, it hits the dense silver tips of the fur and bounces harmlessly away, creating a faint, almost imperceptible, glowing halo around their resting form. They sleep perfectly enveloped in a natural biological shadow, turning the fierce burning sky into a soft, harmless, shimmering blanket. The shimmering warm light catching the edges of the peeling bark draws our slow attention to a rare, deliberate, and deeply ancient dietary ritual. While the fragrant, toxic eucalyptus leaves are their undeniable primary sustenance, there are profound moments when the koala will slowly, purposefully seek out something much darker and much rougher. Moving with heavy, cautious steps along a broad horizontal limb, they will locate a patch of ancient blackened bark. Wood that was deeply scorched and heavily carbonized by a fast-moving bushfire many long seasons ago. With their powerful, crushing jaws, they will deliberately strip and slowly chew this charred, blackened timber. This is not a mistake of a hungry mind. It is an act of profound, instinctual medicine. The rich, porous charcoal acts as a brilliant internal chemical filter, drawing out and neutralizing the heaviest, most resistant toxins that have built up within their slow digestive tract, perfectly cleansing their internal world with the dark, burned memory of the forest. And as this ancient cleansing wisdom settles deep into your own mind, your breathing naturally, beautifully slows. The heavy, dark remnants of your own exhausting day are being gently, completely filtered away. You do not need to hold on to the ashes of yesterday. Your internal world is clearing, becoming pure, quiet, and profoundly still. Every long, slow exhalation releases a little more of the past, leaving you entirely, perfectly present in the comforting dark. The comforting, pure dark of their internal world is guarded by eyes that must constantly navigate a physically demanding, dusty environment. The towering heights of the gum trees are constantly shedding microscopic, highly abrasive particles, a continuous, invisible snow of dried sap, powdered bark, and sharp floating pollen. To protect their beautiful amber-coloured eyes from this relentless scratching storm, the koala possesses a set of highly active, profoundly efficient lacrimal glands. These specialised tear ducts constantly, quietly bathe the entire surface of the eye in a remarkably thick, viscous, perfectly clear fluid. It is a biological shield, far thicker and heavier than the tears of human sorrow. This constant heavy lubrication catches every single microscopic grain of drifting dust, safely isolating the irritant and washing it harmlessly away into the thick fur of their cheeks. It ensures that their vision, when they finally choose to open their eyes to the moon, remains flawlessly sharp, crystal clear, and completely untouched by the abrasive world swirling around them. The swirling, invisible currents of the canopy occasionally carry a sound so incredibly subtle, so deeply profound that it can only be felt by the most intimate sensitive touch. When a tiny, hairless joey is securely locked within the warm, tight sanctuary of the mother's downward-facing pouch, she does not merely surround it with silence. To soothe her growing young during the terrifying, violent swaying of a nighttime storm, the mother will initiate a deep, internal, almost silent hum. It is a subaudible vibration, a low, continuous rhythmic purring that originates deep within her heavy chest cavity and radiates directly through the thick wall of her muscular stomach. To the blind, fragile creature resting inside, this is not a sound. It is a physical, enveloping massage. It is a rhythmic, vibrating lullaby of pure bone and blood that physically calms the joey's racing, tiny heart, wrapping it in an acoustic cocoon of absolute, unwavering safety. The unwavering, absolute safety of that acoustic cocoon perfectly reflects the astonishingly decelerated pace of the koala's entire sprawling nervous system. In the vast majority of the fast-moving, hyper-alert animal kingdom, electrical impulses race along nerve fibers with blinding, instantaneous, frantic speed. But within the quiet, floating world of the koala, these internal biological messages are deliberately, beautifully delayed. Their neurological pathways are encased in specialized sheaths that naturally slow the transmission of sensory information. When a sudden, loud, terrifying crack echoes through the forest, the koala does not instinctively violently flinch or jump, which could cause a fatal tumbling fall from the high canopy. Instead, the sound takes a long, slow, measured journey to their brain. They process the shock with an agonizing, beautiful delay, allowing their heavy, locking thumbs to secure their grip long before the wave of alarm ever reaches their conscious mind. They are completely, biologically insulated from the dangerous, frantic reactions of panic. Feeling this deep neurological insulation, your own nervous system begins to beautifully, effortlessly decelerate. The sudden, sharp, demanding noises of the waking world cannot reach you here. Your reactions are slowing down, softening, melting into a state of profound, untouched calm. There is no need to jump. There is no need to rush. You're insulated. You are safe. You are drifting downward into a heavy, unshakable, perfectly delayed peace. The heavy, unshakable peace of their sensory world allows them to focus with staggering, absolute intensity on the microscopic details of their next meal. When a koala reaches out to test a cluster of silver-green eucalyptus leaves, they are not just relying on their profound, leathery sense of smell. They are actively, intimately listening to the very structure of the plant. As their powerful flat molars slowly, deliberately crush the thick vein of a newly picked leaf, the koala's sensitive cupped ears tune in to the microscopic acoustic signature of the bite. They listen for the specific, crisp, high-frequency snap of the tough, fibrous cell walls rupturing in the dark. This tiny, almost imperceptible crunch tells their highly specialized brain exactly how much precious, locked-in water and how many vital, complex proteins are hidden within that specific bite. They are literally hearing the hidden nutrition, letting the quiet music of the breaking leaf guide their slow, perfect midnight harvest. The quiet music of the harvest eventually fades back into the profound, heavy silence of deep rest, bringing us back to the flawless, mathematically perfect geometry of their sleeping embrace. The way a koala drapes its heavy, woolly body over a thick horizontal branch is not a random, lazy posture. It is a calculated, physiological masterstroke. By sprawling their limbs wide and letting them hang completely limp, heavily straddling the thick wood, they effectively flatten the entire architecture of their chest. This specific sprawling posture physically relieves an immense amount of pressure from their internal organs, giving their large, slow-beating heart completely unimpeded, wide-open space to expand. In this specific draped position, their already incredibly low heart rate drops even further, finding an absolute baseline of biological preservation. The tree becomes a physical extension of their own cardiovascular system, holding their weight so perfectly that their heart barely needs to work at all, coasting effortlessly on the absolute minimum of required energy. This effortless coasting existence is physically supported by a coat of fur that is not uniform, but acts as a highly detailed, brilliantly mapped topographical landscape of survival. If you were to gently run your hand over a sleeping koala, you would discover that the silver-grey wool is distributed with staggering, purposeful inequality. The fur on their pale, soft belly is surprisingly sparse and remarkably thin, specifically designed to release the suffocating, trapped heat of the summer directly into the cool bark. But as you trace the curve of their heavy back down toward their rounded, tailless rump, the fur undergoes a massive, incredible transformation. Here, at the base of their spine, the hair becomes impossibly dense, packed incredibly tight, and remarkably coarse. It forms a permanent, built-in, unyielding cushion of pure woven keratin. This thick, heavy mat of fur prevents the sharp, abrasive, splitting edges of the ancient wooden forks from ever pressing into their skin, providing a lifetime of flawless, deeply comfortable seating in the harshest, most jagged environments of the canopy. And as you visualize this perfect, dense, physical cushion, you can feel the mattress beneath you rising up to meet your own heavy form. You are perfectly supported. Every curve, every muscle, every bone is held in a flawless, customized embrace of pure comfort. The hard, sharp edges of the world are completely gone. You're resting on a cloud of absolute, unwavering softness. Breathe in the quiet and let your body sink completely into the holding dark. The holding dark of the Australian night carries the weight of a history far older than the towering trees themselves, a history woven deeply into the ancient sacred stories of the First Nations people. In the profound, sprawling narratives of the Dreamtime, the koala is rarely seen as a creature of fast action or aggressive power. Instead, they are deeply revered as the silent, ancient, watchful keepers of the canopy. In many ancient spoken traditions, it was the heavy, slow-moving koala who held the secret knowledge of the hidden subterranean water, the silent guardian who knew exactly where the deep, life-giving aquifers were buried beneath the cracked red earth. They are viewed as the absolute masters of the quiet observation, the stoic, patient elders of the bush who understand that true, enduring survival does not come from running, or fighting, or making noise. It comes from the profound, beautiful ability to be perfectly still, to hold onto the tree, to watch the spinning world, and to wait with endless, beautiful patience for the gentle rain to finally fall. The falling of that gentle rain often clears the heavy, aromatic air, leaving behind a sharp, crystalline cold that fundamentally alters the unseen physics of the vast forest. In the deep, freezing heart of the Australian winter, a breathtaking atmospheric phenomenon known as a temperature inversion settles quietly over the vast, darkened valleys. A heavy, invisible blanket of strangely warm air descends, trapping the freezing, dense air close to the earth, creating a perfect, natural acoustic tunnel that stretches across the sleeping continent. Through this invisible atmospheric corridor, the deep, rumbling, low-frequency bellow of a solitary distant male does not simply fade into the rustling leaves. It is perfectly preserved and endlessly beautifully propelled. It travels for miles upon miles, an unbroken, invisible wave of physical sound skimming the top of the silver canopy, a deep, vibrating echo of life that rolls through the freezing dark, perfectly connecting the scattered sleeping giants without a single one of them ever needing to open their heavy eyes. The immense biological energy required to produce such a staggering, far-reaching sound is carefully, meticulously balanced by an internal architecture that operates on the absolute pinnacle of minimalist perfection. Within the smooth, curved, deeply protected dome of their skull, the koala possesses one of the smallest brains, relative to its overall body weight, of any known mammal on the Earth. It accounts for a microscopic fraction of a % of their total mass. To the rushing, frantic, waking world, this might seem like a deficit, but in the high, quiet canopy, it is a brilliant, beautiful surrender of unnecessary biological overhead. A large, complex brain demands a massive, constant, raging furnace of calories to simply function. By elegantly, flawlessly minimizing this heavy neural machinery, the koala completely frees itself from the frantic, desperate hunger that drives the pacing, anxious predators far below. They exist in a state of pure, uncomplicated zen, needing only to know the branch, the leaf, and the deep, profound safety of the dark. And as this knowledge of perfect, elegant efficiency settles softly into your own awareness, your breathing naturally, effortlessly slows. You realize in this quiet moment that you do not need to overthink, overanalyze, or hold on to the heavy, exhausting weight of conscious worry. You can simply let your mind beautifully rest. Your thoughts are becoming smooth, quiet, and effortlessly light. Just breathe, taking in the cool, still air, and let the gentle, effortless efficiency of the night carry you deeper. The physical texture of this quiet, effortless efficiency is beautifully expressed in the slow, sweeping, mesmerizing motion of their heavy jaws. When the pale silver moon casts long, fragmented streaks across the canopy, illuminating the koala at its midnight feast, you would notice that they do not chew with a simple, frantic up and down motion. Their jaw is brilliantly built for a complex, continuous lateral grind. It moves side to side in a sweeping figure-eight pattern, a relentless, mesmerizing biological millstone working in the dark. This specific horizontal shearing action mathematically perfectly slices the tough, leathery veins of the eucalyptus leaf like a pair of microscopically sharp biological scissors. It is a slow, rhythmic, hypnotic dance of bone and muscle, gently releasing the hidden, vital moisture locked deep within the fibrous cells, completely transforming the harsh defenses of the tree into soft, yielding nourishment. Echoing this slow, mechanical breakdown is an invisible, profoundly specific chemical, dismantling occurring deep within the warm, heavy, winding coils of their extended gut. The silver-green eucalyptus leaves they consume so heavily are absolutely flooded with highly toxic tannins, complex, bitter, binding compounds that would instantly lock up the vital proteins in almost any other stomach, causing immediate, painful, fatal starvation. But hidden within the koala's sprawling internal microbial universe is a highly specialized microscopic ally, a specific genus of ancient bacteria uniquely evolved to shatter these exact deadly tannin complexes. This microscopic worker patiently, endlessly unbinds the bitter poison in the absolute dark, miraculously turning the harsh, chemical defense of the ancient tree into a sweet, yielding, life-giving nutrient. It is an unseen, flawless alchemy, a perfect partnership between the massive resting creature and the invisible, microscopic life that sustains it. The tough, heavily armoured nature of the tree they patiently consume is beautifully, physically mirrored by the tough, resistant armour protecting the very soles of their own hands and feet. While their broad, rounded back is completely covered in that luxurious, incredibly soft silver-grey wool, the bottom of their paws tells a story of constant, unyielding friction and immense holding strength. Here, the pale skin thickens into heavily granulated, deeply textured leathery pads, resembling the tough, enduring, beautiful surface of a hardened sandstone rock. This thick dermal armour provides absolute, unflinching protection against the razor-sharp, splintering edges of the shattered branches and the rough, deeply abrasive ridges of the ancient, peeling bark. It flawlessly allows them to rest their entire heavy weight upon the sharpest, most jagged wooden spikes without feeling the absolute slightest whisper of discomfort, turning the harshest, most unforgiving architecture of the forest into a perfect, customized bed. Feeling this profound, unwavering physical protection, your own body sinks heavier and heavier still into the soft, yielding, beautiful surface beneath you. You are completely, perfectly insulated from the sharp, abrasive, demanding edges of the waking world. The rough, pulling textures of the day cannot possibly reach you here. Every single muscle in your heavy limbs is softening. Every nerve is quieting, surrounded entirely by a thick protective layer of absolute untouchable peace. You are safe, you are resting, you are drifting gracefully, heavily, down into the waiting dark. The physical, thick insulation of those heavy footpads is seamlessly, beautifully matched by the chemical insulation that microscopically coats every single strand of their magnificent grey fur. When the misty, freezing grey dampness of the deep southern valleys rises to completely swallow the canopy, the koala does not become cold, shivering, and waterlogged. Deep within the architecture of their pale skin, highly specialized sebaceous glands continuously, slowly secrete a fine, invisible, protective, waxy oil. This natural, rich sebum meticulously coats the dense, overlapping hairs, turning their entire outer layer into an impenetrable hydrophobic shield. As the heavy, freezing droplets of mountain mist condense heavily upon them in the dark, the moisture is physically repelled, beading up instantly into tiny glowing spheres of liquid silver that simply roll harmlessly away, leaving the deep, insulating, downy undercoat perfectly, beautifully, and permanently dry. While the thick, oiled fur locks the precious internal heat completely and safely in, their large, prominent, profoundly beautiful nose acts as a brilliant exposed window to the cooling, sweeping air. This broad, leathery, darkly pigmented expanse of skin is completely, entirely devoid of insulating fur, making it one of the absolute few places on their solid body where the coursing, warm blood flows incredibly close to the cool surface. In the stifling, breathless, blinding heat of the late Australian afternoon, this massive, soft nose functions as a highly efficient biological radiator. As the absolute faintest, gentlest ghost of a breeze stirs through the suffocating, silent canopy, it passes smoothly over this dark, damp, prominent surface, instantly drawing the excess, dangerous heat directly away from their small brain, a silent, invisible, flawless release valve for the relentless fire of the summer sun. The slow, deep cooling of the blood flowing steadily through that dark, prominent nose carries the heavy, ancient genetic memory of their long, agonizingly slow journey from the deep earth to the high sky. Millions of years ago, as the koala's ancient ancestors slowly separated from their closest living relatives, the heavy, earth-moving wombats, their entire, deeply grounded skeletal structure had to beautifully, radically transform. The dense, compacted, forward-facing pelvis of a heavy creature mathematically designed to dig blindly through the dense dirt slowly, elegantly widened and opened. Over sprawling millennia, it became a broad, highly flexible, incredibly supportive cupping cradle. Perfectly engineered not to push the heavy earth away, but to wrap completely and securely around the cylindrical wooden pillars of the new, towering, sunlit world. It was a masterpiece of evolutionary architecture, a slow, deliberate physical redesign that allowed them to finally peacefully let go of the ground entirely, forever trading the dark tunnels for the swaying silver light. And as you feel the beauty of that ancient, slow, perfect transformation, you realize that you too can completely, easily let go of whatever heavy weight is holding you down. You do not need to dig through the dense, exhausting worries of the day. You can slowly, beautifully elevate your mind. You can rise above the heavy earth of your daily stress, finding a perfect, secure, elevated resting place in the quiet canopy of your own mind. You are held. You are light. You are perfectly, deeply suspended in rest. The perfect, quiet stillness of this suspended aerial life is finally, flawlessly guarded by a slow, sweeping hidden veil that washes gently over their deep amber eyes. When the hot, dry, howling winds of the approaching summer violently rip through the high canopy, carrying blinding, choking clouds of fine red dust and sharp, microscopic pollen, the koala does not need to tightly close its eyes and surrender blindly to the chaotic dark. Hidden perfectly just beneath the inner corner of their soft eye is a pale, completely translucent living protective shield, the nictitating membrane. With a slow, languid, incredibly graceful sweep, this third eyelid draws horizontally across the exposed sensitive cornea like a delicate biological windshield wiper. It effortlessly, flawlessly clears away the harsh, scratching debris of the dry, blowing continent, while still magically allowing the quiet, unbroken guiding light of the ancient forest to filter through to their waiting mind. They can watch the storm rage completely protected, seeing the world through a soft, pale, living lens of absolute, unwavering safety. The soft, pale, living lens of that protective membrane eventually closes completely, sealing away the physical world to reveal the ultimate, most profound truth of their quiet existence in the high canopy. To observe a koala in its deepest, most impenetrable state of slumber is not merely to watch an animal resting, it is to witness a profound biological masterclass in absolute surrender. In a sprawling modern world that constantly, desperately demands frantic motion, relentless progress, and endless, exhausting achievement, the koala possesses a deeply ancient philosophical wisdom written perfectly into its very DNA. They are the undisputed quiet masters of simply being. They do not hoard resources for a tomorrow that may never come. They do not carry the heavy, paralyzing weight of yesterday's regrets. They exist entirely, perfectly, and beautifully in the exact microscopic fraction of the present moment. Their survival is not predicated on fighting the harsh, demanding Australian landscape, but on a complete, unwavering physical acceptance of it. When they sleep, their brainwaves slow to a profound rhythmic pulse that mirrors the deep, ultra-low frequencies of the ancient earth itself. They become a living, breathing extension of the timber, a quiet, silver-grey anchor holding the chaotic, spinning energy of the forest in a state of perfect, balancing calm. They teach us the most difficult, beautiful secret of the natural world, that sometimes the most powerful, necessary, and life-sustaining action you can possibly take is to completely stop, to let go of the need to control the wind, to release the desperate urge to understand the sprawling, complex map of the forest, and to simply trust the strong, ancient branch beneath you. It is a biological testament to the staggering power of absolute stillness, a quiet, enduring promise that you do not need to constantly move to be worthy of your place in the vast, beautiful world. And as this ultimate quiet wisdom settles deep into your own resting mind, your breathing finds its final, slowest, most perfect rhythm. The heavy protective canopy of sleep is completely closing over you now, shielding you from the bright, demanding light of the waking hours. You have climbed high above the noise of the day, leaving the frantic, fast-moving, exhausting world far, far below on the shadowed forest floor. You're safe in the high branches of your own quiet sanctuary. Every single muscle in your body has completely, beautifully surrendered its heavy, aching weight to the waiting dark. The tension in your shoulders is entirely gone, melting away like the thin morning mist under the soft silver light of the moon. Your chest rises and falls with the slow, unhurried, hypnotic pulse of the ancient, turning earth. The air you breathe in is cool, still, and completely pure, and the breath you release carries away the very last microscopic fragment of your daily stress. There is absolutely nothing left for you to do. There is nowhere else you need to be. The journey through the canopy is complete. The vast infinite library of your subconscious mind has quietly, perfectly absorbed the gentle living truths of the forest. They are locked away in the warm, comforting dark, safe, held, and endlessly, deeply soothing. You are perfectly, completely still. You are perfectly, profoundly safe. The night wind rustles softly, gently through the high, silver-green leaves, but it does not disturb your rest. It only sings a quiet, slow, ancient lullaby, carrying you further and further and further down into the waiting velvet shadows. The edges of your conscious awareness are softly, beautifully blurring. The shape of the waking world is fading entirely into a beautiful, heavy, welcoming grey mist. Let the deep, quiet, natural gravity of the earth hold you completely. Let the absolute, unbroken, eternal silence of the midnight forest wrap entirely around you. You are floating on a sea of quiet. You are resting in the heart of the ancient timber. You're completely, finally, and endlessly at peace. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.